Hey y'all, thanks for being here at this weird time for me, and it's very bright in the background, so whatever. Any which way, we're going to do a Wick thing, yeah, it's going to be fun. And Destiny will be there, and that'll be great. Sure, you degenerates will love that. Yeah. Here we go. Um, we're gonna do this. We're already in the room. Let me turn this off. And oh, we're gonna get ourselves on camera. Someone asked if I was considering stream on Rumble. I've considered it. I should actually look at it again. I really haven't in a while. And then someone else said, I'm just hanging out. Can't wait to hear Destiny's opinions about the policies he supports, but moved away from to Florida. Away to Florida. He moved to Florida? I don't know. All right, here we go. Let's see. Okay. Great. Let's do this.
Okay.
Hey y'all.
Hi. How are you?
Fine.
Good.
Hello, hello,
Doing all right.
hello. We are just waiting on a couple people.
Okay.
Looks like
Nice.
IRI and Sokdon left. Sokdon left joined the server. I don't know where he is though. So hopefully he'll be here soon. But yeah. How are you?
Pretty
I'm
good.
doing all right. Yeah. You all look beautiful, so there's that.
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course.
I was talking to
course.
Wick. What? What?
Okay, hi, what's up? I'm streaming this audio. Don't say crazy shit.
Okay.
Too late. We're just waiting on one more person, and then we'll get this shit show started, and it should be fun. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's doing good and had a great day. And I appreciate you for showing up today. It should be a fun discussion. What's up, IRI?
Yo, what's up, guys?
Hey.
You know, keeping it real, as they say.
Totally.
Let me DM's SDL see what the issue is.
You know what's cool? I think maybe with the exception of IRA, although you do have that blue poster in the back, I think all of us have blue tones in our background in some way. That's pretty cool. I just wanted to say that.
It's it shows superior judgment, superior taste.
Absolutely.
IRI's trying his best.
Absolutely.
Speak of the devil. Okay, excellent. Santh, we can't see you, and SDL, we don't
gotcha.
have your camera. But as soon as that comes, I'll start this show and we'll get into it. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you. Hopefully, everyone enjoys this discussion. We have a pretty robust and lively debate here. Yeah, while we wait for Synth, I'll just kind of get into it. So welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we are going to be talking about DNC primary debates. Obviously, Biden is currently the incumbent, but there has been some discussion on whether or not the DNC should allow or fund debates between the various primary challengers and Biden himself. Is this a good idea? Is this something that the DNC should do, or is this just a terrible kind of dismissive thing that will hurt the party in the general that we should avoid? Why or why not? And we're gonna just talk about it tonight, and we'll get into it. And yeah, keep your openings brief, and then we'll get into the meat of the discussion. Synth, you're up. We can't see you.
Camera works here now.
No,
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go. Beautiful. Go ahead,
Sure.
Synth.
So-
Start us off.
Yeah. So, in short, the reason that I support the ability for the other Democrats to be primary challenges, specifically in regards to a debate, is because I think if the Democrats are willing to establish a permanent tradition of consistent primary debates, it helps to promote important liberal values, democratic and intellectual competition, for example. It shows we're an egalitarian society. and nobody's above having their power challenged and being put in a position where they have to justify it. It shows that Biden is fit for the office, that he can stand on a stage, that he's a real person, that the Republican lies about dementia are unfounded, and standing next to a guy like RFK who looked like the platonic ideal of good health. I think that the overall case ends up being pretty overwhelming, but I'll keep my opening statement short so we can get right into the meat of the discussion.
Thank you, and yeah, we'll get into it. Next up, we have Fairy Queen, please.
Is that the DNC should not host primary debates against Joe Biden for 3 reasons. Number one, being historical president. No sitting president has participated in primary debates, even in cases where there have been significant challengers, such as Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and George Bush. Hosting a debate against an incumbent sends the wrong message during the primaries. Number two, there are no true contenders. Robert F. Kennedy promotes conspiracy theories and lacks governance experience. Marianne Williamson has never held office and has a failed campaign. And number three, it weakens the party. Hosting a challenger incumbent debate recalls Jimmy Carter's loss in 1980. Carter's primary clash with Ted Kennedy weakened his campaign and the Democrats' power. In summary, considering historical precedent, the lack of viable contenders, and the potential to weaken the party, it's clear that hosting these primary debates would be detrimental.
Okay, thank you. First time guest on my show, Sock Done Left. Hi. Oh, you're muted.
Hey, so the reasons that we should have a primary debate are 4. 1, it helps with the optics of Biden appearing like he's either being coronated or that he's being hidden away from the public for poor health. Again, that should help him win because he's appearing next to RFK, who's like a zombie, and all the other candidates, and he'll be appearing fairly healthy on stage. 2 is that it's free airtime. It's time to outline his agenda and set what the national conversation is. You don't get that with a lot of other events. Why shouldn't he take this advantage? There's no reason for him not to take advantage of this. And most of the other candidates on the stage will also be reorienting the agenda towards things that would benefit Democrats in the general. And the third and fourth reasons that we would want to support this is that he has failed on some of his promises, like protecting people at the border, protecting trans people, and having primary debates offers a chance for people to participate and encourage him to be held to account and actually protect the people who need it most.
Thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll get into it. Appreciate you keeping it brief. IRI, go ahead.
Yeah, total waste of time. Biden's been kicking ass. The midterms success, keeping the Republicans down to the little red trickle, totally sapped any opposition to Biden. Everybody serious dropped out or even considered it. Why in the world would Biden debate very serious candidate Marianne Williamson with her previous 1% polling run in 2020? She believes rocks have powers. Not feeling it. RFK Jr. is a guy who thinks vaccines cause autism and peddles Russian disinformation on Newsmax and Fox News all day long. So total waste of my president's time. Not a fan. Don't support it. Don't even think that debates have anything to do with democracy anyways. Like, I'd love to hear the argument how they do.
Okay, and I guess that will be a question that we'll be asking throughout the general discussion here. Thanks for being here, IRI. Really appreciate you. Next up, Prime Kai. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll keep it really short. Primaries are a crucible, and if Biden can't take it up to when dealing with an apparently unserious a challenger like IRI apparently thinks, then how can he stand up to the Republican candidate? Right? Like, if this is going to be a cakewalk, let it be a cakewalk. And yeah, so thanks all for having me here.
Well, thanks for being here, Prime Kai. Short and sweet and to the point. That's how we like it. Destiny, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to copy IRI and Ferry's arguments. I don't think there are any serious contenders right now. I think that the Republican Party is in a complete and total state of disarray. I think the most important thing we can do is provide a united front, like we did in the House when McCarthy had to run the election 52 different times just to get the election there. I think it makes us look better to have a united front backing Biden. And when there are no serious challengers, when there's no historical precedent for it, and there's no compelling reason to do so, I don't know why we would ever host a debate against our incumbent sitting president.
And with that, let's open it up to the general.
What counts as a serious challenger? And if there was a serious challenger, would you all be in support?
I think that if there was like if there was a challenger that was polling like 40-50% support in the Democratic Party or something, or at the very least sizable, like a sizable 2-digit support, and people were really looking at Biden and like not taking him seriously, I think you could start. That would be like what you would need just to begin to have the argument of like an incumbent debate, but even that wouldn't be enough. But right now, that field is clearly not here.
So
One
when
of the problems of this is self-selecting, right? You've set up a field where there's no debate, there's no opportunity to get any clout on the national stage, no opportunity to get up there. So why would anyone try and join in, right? You've set it up
But-
that no one's ever going to meet that threshold.
and beyond that, right? Like during the course of a campaign, people grow in popularity as people are exposed to their ideas, as they are taken seriously by the media, which right now is not happening. And so their poll numbers grow, and then by the time they have a debate, then they might be where you're saying, like, give them a chance, but you're not even giving them that.
I have a
Well,
response.
look,
Oh,
neither of these people have any elected office experience, and look at Trump. I mean, it doesn't exactly work out when you have somebody that's brand new to the scene that comes along. So what do you see about these two that is so valuable to put Biden up there? Like, what does Marianne Williamson have? She wants to have an economic U-turn, and she has no explanation how she gets anything done. It's like Bernie Sanders wanted to have Medicare for all in 4 years. Does anybody out there think Bernie would have got Medicare for all in 4 years? No way. Biden's living in reality, and that's why people are supporting him as for running for re-election.
So again, this is a sort of circular situation where the reason why there aren't any serious opposition candidates is because no one has the opportunity to actually seriously oppose. If they can't get on the debate stage, what's the point?
If
But the reason
way,
you're only
Come on.
getting
if the only
It's
way you can have a
entertainment.
serious opposition is to just get on the debate stage, then you're probably. I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah, like if you're at least like a senator, a governor, like DeSantis isn't considered a serious contender on the Republican side because he just wants to get on the debate stage, right? Pence isn't a serious contender because he wants to get on the debate stage. Like if your only claim to fame for trying to do, and keep in mind, this would be historic, right? That we're going to have a challenge for our incumbent who's already beaten the likely Republican nominee anyway. Like, I don't know why we're trying to like help people write book deals or help people become famous while running in opposition to our president. I don't know why we would do that.
I want to give
Right, like,
space to I want to give space to Fairy
go ahead.
Queen to kind of get into. So go ahead, Fairy.
The question, why is this particular the election the time to do this, SDL? We have the incumbency. Incumbency is one of the biggest reasons why presidential candidates like become reelected. Like it's a huge factor. So why would we give that up to give somebody else space now?
We're not giving up incumbency. The point that both Synth and I have talked about is that Biden gets on stage. He shows that he's not just a walking corpse. He shows that he's healthy. He can speak confidently. He can beat the fuck out of his opponents. If you really think that the other guys are cranks, if you think Williamson's a crank and JFK's a crank, then you should fucking crush them, right?
Yeah,
So
no.
I think this argument doesn't really work. If there's serious
why-
contenders,
Can I jump
But
in really
why-
quick, just to reiterate, to back up the point? So, if in the case of RFK in particular, somebody like RFK going on stage and being a crank, it's really, really good for Joe Biden going to the generals to look like he just won a competition. Looking like you've won something means you look like you'll win more things in the future. It's the kind of thing that establishes a certain precedent as well. You can say like you said earlier that you think it's the case that no incumbent president has ever participated in a primary debate. Maybe you're just talking since Ford, and I agree. Right, there hasn't been the norm since Ford. But if we want to take a look at what kind of norms we can establish, I think it's the case that we can still take this particular norm and establish a norm of being challenged. And I don't think it makes Biden look weak. I think it makes him look strong in the face of really weak challengers like RFK and Marianne Williamson, like who you've said and who all of you have said are not serious. They're not serious challengers. The kind of
But
people who Biden would easily stop.
Don't you think it would hurt our image as Democrats to have two clowns up there and a guy who believes vaccines cause autism? I think it would actually
Absolutely
cause
not.
more damage to the Democratic Party and Biden's chances of winning.
To the Republicans,
only-
of course not. That's their kind of guy, right? They're like the
Yeah, well,
Nazgul
Ferris,
types like
but
RFK.
Republicans aren't going to
Because
vote
we want to
for
appeal to
Biden
we want to
no
appeal
matter
to these
what.
swing voters. Hold on, we want to appeal to swing voters. A lot of swing voters are really big fans of people like RFK, these sort of like Nazgul, like eco-fascist type individuals who it can easily pull people. I don't know what you're doing the face for. You can easily pull people over from these camps that are like these centrist swing voter camps, these Joe Rogan viewer types, and move them over to be more integrated into the Democratic Party.
I don't think swing voters are voting on anti-vax policies. They might have issues relating to like some of the mandates, but swing voters are not eco-fascist anti-vaxxers. Number one, and number two, even if
say
the
they
debates are like a clear win for Biden, that doesn't mean that Biden couldn't get damaged by them, right? Especially if it's people that have nothing to lose on that debate stage, right? Kamala Harris probably didn't Kamala Harris didn't have a chance in hell at winning the presidency or making it through that nomination process, but she still took a couple of really good chunks out of Biden. I remember when she made that comment about I rode those buses, Mr. Or nominee vice president. So just because you put people on stage that might not win doesn't mean they couldn't still potentially do damage to Biden. And as much as I like
What kind of
Biden,
attacks could RFK or Marianne Williamson make that Republicans couldn't also make, especially RFK, the only serious challenger?
but there's a difference because the attacks coming from without are a lot different than attacks coming from within. Why would we go through a damage of our own presidential candidate before he's even even gotten to the main stage.
What is the attack? What's the attack RFK can make the Republicans can't?
It's not a matter of him making a unique attack. It's a matter of the attack coming from the Democratic establishment versus it coming from a Republican. That's the difference.
So
I don't know if we want to
I don't know
on stage
if Marianne
about
Williamson,
vaccine mandates among
RFK and
Democrats.
Williamson are not establishment. Marianne Williamson and RFK are not establishment. You said yourself they haven't ever held elected office.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're not part of the Democratic establishment, then they can go and debate on the main stage after they get however much percentage polling they need to in the generals. Then good for them.
Wait, so your argument doesn't work anymore?
No, my
Like, you just
argument works fine.
made
The
an argument, it doesn't work
Democratic
anymore.
Party, the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, should not be hosting debates in the Democratic Party against our incumbent president. Now, if you want to say, well, hold on, these aren't established Democrats or whatever, okay, that's fine.
The
Then they don't
reason
have to
why
be-
was because of the fact that you thought the reason why you said that is because you thought there would be attacks that would come from people like RFK and Marianne Williamson the Republicans couldn't make because of the fact that you thought those people were Democrat people, members of the Democratic establishment. I'm telling you, they're not. Hold on, they're not members of the establishment.
Sure.
What
I'll
attacks
give
could they
myself for the
possibly make?
third or fourth time. It's not about the
Don't
types
repeat
of
yourself.
attacks
Nice to
they
see
make.
you,
Well, I am
Steve
going to understand
Jobs.
it. It's not about the types of attack they can make. It's about the Democratic establishment fighting with itself. It's about the Democrats fighting with themselves rather
They're
than
not
presenting.
establishment.
Okay.
They're
You
part
keep
of the
saying this.
Democratic Party. If
Stop
they're gonna be
repeating.
in the- if
Stop
they're gonna be
repeating
in-
yourself. No, Marianne Williamson is not part of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
She's an
Okay,
independent.
She's not part. She
No,
doesn't
but-
need to be in Democratic debate.
Hold on,
No,
hold
she
on.
can be
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
middle.
I mean, I agree with
Bernie
that
was an
single
independent.
point. I mean, I agree with that single point that Steve is making. That like, if they're within the Democratic infrastructure, there, like they're using the Democratic infrastructure to make their case, and so they would be on the Democratic stage, and so yeah, they could. I mean, there would be a fight between Democrats, right? That's what people see. Democrats fighting Democrats. I mean, we can establish that, right? Like, who cares within the
I
establishment?
totally
or not?
agree. It would be a fight among people who would look like. Oh, go ahead, that's you were going to jump on.
Well, no, just if fights between Democrats really hurt the Democratic candidate, we should expect that in the campaigns where there are primaries, that the people do way worse. And you point to, I don't know, one example, like 40 years ago. There's no reason to think this is a general trend. You know, evidence from like 538 is that debates in general, like during the general elections, barely affect people's voting whatsoever because people have really strong partisan loyalties. They're not going to be like, oh, I really like Biden. I like all of his policies. But then this anti-vax eco-fash got up on stage and they called Biden like a crank who's paid out by Big Pharma and now I hate him. No, like very few people are swayed by that.
Okay, number one, I want to respond to something that you, Synth, said. So I didn't say like since Gerald Board. So this is according to the University of Virginia Center for Politics. No sitting president has appeared in a primary debate, even ones who facing significant primary challenges. So this even predates Gerald Ford. So this is ever in the history of the DNC that has not happened, at least according to this source, that has not happened. So that's the first thing. The second
you
thing.
said in the DNC history, you're not talking.
So I'm just reading literally off of like what the source says.
Can you link it?
A president not participating in a primary debate would be keeping with history. No sitting president has appeared in a primary debate, even ones who ended up facing significant primary challenges. And you can look it up. It's on the Center for Politics. It's by the
I'll go grab it
University
for you.
of Virginia. So that, at least according to this, so there has never been, at least according to this source. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the idea that this couldn't have a significant impact upon like the debate, that is not true. So a good historical example of this would be Jimmy Carter's run against Ted Kennedy. Jimmy Carter was very unpopular during the 1980 election. He had very low approval ratings. A lot of people criticized his treatment of the hostage situation during that particular period of history. Ted Kennedy was very popular. He still didn't win the nomination. The fact of the matter is that primary challenge, even though an actual debate didn't happen, was so detrimental to Jimmy Carter's campaign that it was a contributing factor to the reason why he lost to Ronald Reagan in that election. A big contributing reason as to why that happened. If we don't want that to happen again in this upcoming election, we owe it to ourselves to support the incumbent, who in this case is Joe Biden.
Look, Carter won like 4 states. It wouldn't have mattered whether he did better or worse. He was such a poor candidate. You cannot point to this example.
Hold on, can I ask our friends on the other side here, are you guys saying that you like Biden so much that you want to show the nation how competent he is by putting him up against these cranks? Is that what I'm to understand based on what you've said?
One of the problems here is that the reason there's only cranks running is because nobody serious wants to dare like threaten their career by not being able to get even in a debate, but just announcing that they're against Biden. All that does is signal to the Democratic establishment that you are against the establishment, and so they'll fuck you over. That like
why does
why
the
would they
debate
do
being
it?
on the debate stage matter so much? Why is that so key?
Because it's the only
there
thing these
is-
fucking clowns have. Not
Sure.
you guys, but like Marianne Wilson, yeah.
No, I'm okay.
It's
Okay.
entertainment,
know.
it's theater.
But
You
no,
had
no,
a
no.
steel man,
It's
I could
more
say.
than that. No, it's more than that. The debate doesn't
Okay.
exist within a vacuum floating above us all, right? The debate exists within a media ecosystem, right? So it's talking about like the debates. It's preparing for the debates. It's analyzing debates afterwards, like the media doing this. And it gives a lot of attention to whoever is involved, right? And it gives a level of credibility. So, like again, even if you don't think these particular people who've already announced are serious, then people who are serious, let's say like Gavin Newsom, who we know is going to go for the presidency eventually, right? He wouldn't jump in now because why would I, right? Like Biden won't even deign to talk to me, and it makes him look like he's a joke.
Oh,
Can I
come
clear
on.
one thing up really
Prime.
quick? Just really quick. It's not super important, but I want to clear one thing up. Just because I did some fact checking on myself. Now, Fairy Queen, the Gerald Ford in particular was a sitting president and did do a primary debate in 1976.
Okay.
But that's not,
Prime.
it's not that important to your argument. I just wanted to clear it up.
Prime, are you seriously telling me that Gavin Newsom isn't getting into the race because he won't be able to get on the debate stage with Biden? Are you serious? You can't be serious that you think that's the primary reason someone like Gavin Newsom isn't entering the race.
It's because it's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you
Yes,
go.
Prime.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. I think it's one of the very significant reasons why he wouldn't do that. Like if I'm Gavin Newsom and I'm weighing my options, right? Like the DNC has already locked it down, saying we're going to coronate President Biden. What are my incentives? My incentives are to hold my fire, wait until the next cycle, rather than go into a situation where I get no institutional support. Like, in fact, the entire institution apparently is against me from even trying. And the splash that I make will simply be a splash. Like, isn't this a weird thing that someone of Gavin Newsom's stature is doing this?
Okay.
I just find it ridiculous. I think the real answer is that Biden has been doing a great job. He's had a flurry of legislative victories. We did really well in the midterms, holding back the Republicans from their red tsunami. And people have to thank Biden for this. He's done a great job, like with the debt ceiling, kicking the can past the elections, taking away the major bargaining chips from the GOP. And so the leading contenders who could challenge him say, we have a huge incumbent advantage here. We're possibly going to have Donald Trump on the ballot. Why in the world would we want to have someone else up there? It makes sense to get our guy across the finish line.
We
When
have
you
a
run for president, you're thinking 2 terms. You're not thinking 4 years and then I'll fight again.
Well,
for it.
he
You're
said
thinking
he
8
was going to go
years.
for one a term previously, right? And he was lying. Okay, so let's put that out there. But that's fine. We'll
don't
move
know
past that.
about
We'll move
that.
past that. But we
He
understand.
explicitly said that.
He
How do you not know
explicitly said that. Let's not pretend, right? Let's not memory hold that. That's the thing that happened, and then he lied about it. But okay, we're moving past that. Politicians lie. But like,
It's good that he lied. I'm glad
Yes.
he's running again. Like, but
yeah, like
exists
we
a
have
lie.
a situation where like everyone, whether you want to admit it
I
or not,
don't
whether the
remember seeing
mainstream
this. I'd have to look it
media,
up.
whether the
that.
mainstream media wants to admit it or not, Biden has an age problem. He does, right? I hope everyone here acknowledges that. He has an age problem, and actually not that big of a deal to me, but people keep talking about it. People are wondering. People don't have less confidence in this person, and so if he is as amazing as you say he is, right? Then this gives him a chance to show that he's still on top of it, that he's still got it, and puts him in a better
Why this?
position.
Put him in some little short shorts, get him running on the beach. Why does he need to
So
do
we can
this
fall
to prove
over
his
again.
mental
Yeah, no,
competence?
I wouldn't
I have
do
a
it that
question.
way.
I have a
Sandbag
question.
with
That's
place
not
behind.
and
Real
that's
quick.
not what people are. You know that's not what people are talking about. They're not talking about his physical capabilities. They're talking about his mental capabilities. Let's not lie here.
So, just IRI, you're probably most likely to know this, but if anyone knows this, please let me know. What's Biden's current approval rating?
Isn't it like 35% or something?
Yeah,
It's
so it's
I'm looking at
40, I think.
pretty
RCP,
underwater,
and
right?
it's 40% in terms of favorability. 40% now.
Yeah, but this is a
it
poll,
fluctuates
first of
between
all.
38.
We all
Sorry?
believe those polls, right? 2016, 2020. We really have a lot of faith in
But
polls.
of course,
I don't
the way,
even
no,
believe
no,
half
no,
of these
there's no
polls
way
anyway.
that you. No, come on. There's no way you're a poll denialist, IRA. The polls were accurate. They were
Are you telling
predictive.
me?
What
Oh,
the
really?
polls
The
were saying
polls were
was, yeah,
good in
what the polls were,
2020 and
yes,
2016?
they were
Oh,
very
really?
good. Yes.
Okay.
The polls
Got it.
weren't saying something like, oh, it's a 100% chance that Hillary will win. They'll say something like it's a majority chance Hillary's going to win,
Look,
and it's
here-
really close. And it was really
here's
close.
the-
And Hillary didn't win. She won the popular vote, but she lost the overall electoral vote. And I don't think that's like a sign that polls are bad. The polls are pretty accurate. There's not a good reason that you can challenge the methodology of any of these polls.
Okay, here's the thing. We are like 17 months away from the election. Everybody in America blames the president for every problem. So right now, you ask people, are you happy in America? A lot of people are going to say no. You say, who do you blame? They're going to say Biden. You want someone else? Yeah, sure. Who you want? I have no idea. So that's what I think the poll is, with like 60% of people saying, I want somebody else. But they have no idea who they want. You know what? If you're in a relationship, you got a girlfriend, you probably wish you had a hotter girlfriend. That's
Show them
how
the
it
other
is,
options.
man.
Show them how ugly all the other girls are, right? They'll love Biden a lot more.
But
This is a
people
great
don't think like that.
conversation.
People don't think like that.
I think they absolutely do. Let's go ahead, Wes. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Well, to that point, right? They don't know who else. And I think SDL mentioned this earlier, right? One of the reasons that they don't know who else is out there is because there's no airtime for anyone else or any other positions, right? So would it not behoove, right, the American public, just in case, like, heaven forbid, Biden does become too sick to run, right? For whatever reason becomes too sick to run. It's a possibility that we have to take seriously, right? Without primary debates and having nothing, we have to kind of start from scratch. But if we did have at least some primary debates up there, we have some contenders who have been on the national stage in very recent memory that we could point to. Now, maybe we don't want the RFKs of the world to be up there only, but if we kind of opened it up more to maybe the Gavin Newsoms of the world, would that not be a boon to us?
I mean, in that case, we're going back to the other argument of like, we need serious contenders. Like, if Biden dropped dead tomorrow, RFK and Marianne Wilson are not, neither of those are going to be our.
But if he dropped dead tomorrow, then it wouldn't be a coronation, and then real contenders would step up. So like this is we keep getting to this point where it's often perceived as a coronation. Clinton was perceived as a coronation. First off, we want to avoid that optics. It's good to have Biden perceived as genuinely winning a really, like, if it's really just these cranks, he's going to crush them, right? You actually go ahead.
The reason why it was hold on, there's such a bad comparison. The reason why Hillary Clinton was considered a coronation is because the Democratic establishment didn't want any challengers to her, or that was perceived as not wanting challengers to her, in a situation where she should have been challenged, because we were going to have a primary, because we needed to vote on our primary candidate, because we didn't have an incumbent. So to compare that coronation with, oh, they just want to coronate Biden by not having somebody challenge his incumbency, that doesn't happen. Historically, that doesn't happen. And something that I think IRI said it earlier, I didn't even consider this. The idea that now, when you're a president, not only do you have to worry about your second term fighting against the opposition party, now you have to worry about being primaried by your own party the entire time, where people are going to be hitting you now from both sides. Well, we're going to have a primary where Biden is going to have to answer why the minimum wage is at $25 an hour, and then he's going to run to the general election where he's got to fight against a president that's trying to eliminate the minimum wage. Like, that's just, the optics on that are insane. I think that there is
Wait, why?
You have to make a good. Why what?
Why are the optics not bad?
Because having him go up to a primary where he's going to be attacked from the left the entire time on policies that probably aren't even popular with the general American public, that he doesn't even need to speak to them, and then go to the primary where he's got to fight a whole different set of battles. Like, these aren't even going to be arguments that are going to advance his position in the general. The only thing they could possibly do is weaken him.
How does that not just make him look like a Go ahead, Desi. I was going to ask probably the same question.
You first.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask, why is it at all not going to just make him look like a reasonable individual when you have people attacking you from the left and the right? Like, you yourself should know, right? Like, you have anybody should know. You do look more reasonable if you're attacked from both sides. You look like you're a centrist.
But even
I'm not part of an unelected party. If I was part of a party, my goal would not be to fight with everybody all the time. My goal would be to build as many bridges in my party as possible. That's why you've got people like AOC. No, not.
But the left and the right part of your party. That's the left and the right part of your party.
No. That's not bipartisan. That's just like normal partisanship. You should be friends with your own party. And the
Should
idea
you be
that
friends with people in the center as well?
Hold on. I don't know why you just keep stacking on like retarded question after retarded question.
What is retarded about these questions?
Nobody's talking about center or left or right. I'm just saying within your own party, there should be an expectation that as president, when you go to run for your second term, you're not going to get primaried by your own party. That's considered in poor taste, even for House and Senate seats.
You were saying it looks bad. It looks bad optics if he's attacked from the left or the right. Like, this is now you're moving over to like it looks bad if he's attacked at all at being primary. I'm trying to figure out why does it look bad to be attacked from the left and the right?
Because people are going to have the luxury of hitting you from positions that are completely and totally untenable in the general, and all they're trying to do is make a name for themselves or sign a book deal or maybe do something online. These people aren't even defending seats in their own states. They're not even currently elected representatives. Why do we throw any random fucking person on stage to see if they can go ahead and land the killer blow on Biden when we know they're never going to even win the primary, let alone have a snowball's chance in hell?
Why would you land a killer blow from a position that most people think is unpopular and is totally untenable?
Because you could have like another Kamala Harris bus moment where that was a really big hit on Biden during the primary argument that a lot of people were like, ooh, he looks really
There's
bad. They're
no
like,
good reason to think that had any kind of impact whatsoever on polls.
It happened to not have an impact, but it could have. You don't know what's going to stop it. Why even take the chance?
Why would you cite an example that didn't even matter?
Hold
Yeah,
on,
but
no,
you-
you guys are using your hindsight shit 2020, but you don't know, right? For instance, like that might be an attack that did nothing, but Chris Christie's attacks on Marco Rubio arguably sank his whole
Chris-
fucking campaign.
yeah, but
Watching
Rubio
Rubio
was-
give the same answer 4 times in a row might have been the
There's a
thing that
reason you
actually
didn't use
tipped
that
the
That,
scale.
that was
No,
a
No,
small
no,
fish
no,
sinking
no,
a
no.
small fish.
No. What I'm saying is you don't know what
Biden is
attacks
the
are gonna
president.
stick. You don't know what attacks are going to stick and what attacks aren't. So why would you risk them?
By
You
this
have no good
argument, why do we
argument.
have
You don't
primaries
have
at
any-
all? Why
Yeah,
do we
the
have
reason-
primaries at all?
You have a primary because your party wants to choose a candidate to send up to fight against the other party for a general election.
No,
Yeah, but why do we ever allow the incumbent to ever be primary? So you talked about House and Senate races; those are primaried all the time. DSA does this all the time. They win like 1/2 of their races. Like they win, right? So clearly we do this for other positions. Why is the president special?
Because
they're
I think
not
the
term
president-
limited.
Yeah, one, they're not term limited, and 2, because the president is a special seat that has a ton of fucking power. And also, it is considered a faux pas to primary certain candidates, right? Like people that have a lot of power
Faux
in the
pas.
House, for instance.
Yeah, like
right?
Joe Crowley, right?
Sure, I'm just saying that the idea of you can laugh all you want, but you provided 0 arguments for why we should have primary challengers to the president for like the first time in
I can
No,
fucking
no, no,
name
we
the
gotta-
arguments if you want. We can
we
recite
have
the
no,
arguments we've
we
we
had.
do,
Not a
we
single
do have
argument
to
for
step
in favor.
back. We do have to step back, right? Because you were saying, and I'm gonna be very sure you're saying this. You were saying that primaries, even within lower offices, don't make sense.
I
That
never
they're
said that. Well,
they're
I
prob-
never
He's
said
not
that.
they're
saying
okay. They're
that. Come
problematic.
on.
So you are fully in support. Then I just want to be clear that you are fully support for primarying a senator or a House seat, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, so like we can ignore this full Paul bullshit. That was like a throwaway comment that no one needs to care about, right?
No, I'm just saying that as the stakes get higher when you get to higher levels of leadership, I think it's generally seen in poor taste if you're like trying to primary.
It's in
like,
poor
the
taste
Speaker
by
of
the
House or
establishment, the
whatever.
people in power. Yes, indeed, they don't like
It's
to be
in poor-
challenged.
sure.
Of course not. Yeah, I mean I don't know.
Yeah,
like
if you want to frame it that way, but no, it's because it's.
I
probably just
will,
an
because it's
upset of the power
exactly what it
structure
is.
Of the things that run things in Congress, right?
yeah, okay. So the people in charge don't like to be challenged, and that's like when we have a president who is seen as weak, even by members of his party. When we have a
I
president,
want to be clear. Are you saying that Biden is seen as weak by members of the Democratic Party? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Okay. Who is saying that?
Yeah, who is saying
literally
this?
everyone. So hold on. It
Can you-
seems
can
like
you name-
this is
name a
new
name?
to people like
The proof-
IRI,
look.
but like
Yes.
we have in spaces in terms of like like progressive news in the leftist space, right? Within the establishment party, within the establishment donors, right? So I watched a news segment where like a booster guy who talks like establishment donors, he says like every time, every single conversation he has, people bring up Biden's age, right? They're like, I guess, yeah, maybe I'll support him, but like, is he really fit? People are wondering about his fitness. It's a thing. You can deny it. You can pretend that he's your president and he's such a great guy and he can do no wrong, but the rest of the country does not agree. Let's establish that.
I'm not
Wait,
saying
really
whether or
quick, I
not
wanna jump in
it's-
here.
It just
what
wasn't
I'm
to you, Wick.
asking
Say
for.
what you're
I want to be
saying.
clear. Stop. I want to be clear. What I'm not saying that this is true or not. I don't know.
I wasn't
What I'm
talking to
asking
you,
for
Wick.
is
I was
a
talking to
name.
Aaron.
Oh.
I'm
I-
asking for
no.
a name.
No, no.
Wrecked with-
What? Okay, what do you want? Just a name of a
Just one
person?
name.
Okay,
One
Cenk
name of
Uygur. Let's try
someone.
that. Let's try Cenk Uygur. Let's try that. All right, there you go. That's a person. I don't know why you wanted
That was
a
the
person.
question.
I you wanted
The
a
guy who
person,
wrote a-
but I gave you a person.
Name
whatever.
10
Nobody here-
people. Name 10
Name
Democrats.
10 people.
Yeah, but nobody here is going to disagree that Biden has physical and mental potential problems, okay? But you're going to need something more than that threshold to overcome if you're trying to say we should primary our presidential candidate, because the incumbent advantage is way bigger than any perceived mental or physical defects he currently has.
They always run a primary. The president just almost always wins. Like, it's not that they're being primary. They're always being primary. They just win. No one runs against
Listen.
them. It's uncontested.
Biden is fine. Biden could be in a medically induced coma and run the country. Like, what do you guys think? Everyone out there thinks that the president's the puppet master and they have to be
No,
functioning. Like,
no.
Biden could be he could be unable to talk
So-
and still run it. Look at his Twitter account.
so
That's
you
the
are-
president
Shadow
of the
President
United
Kamala
States,
Harris can
surrounded
handle it,
by
yeah.
smart people.
Right? Like
What?
I don't know. Eleanor Roosevelt, fan IRI here, is saying that yeah, the president can be disabled. It's like not a big deal, right? Like why would we care about the fitness of our president? Why
We're
do we
electing his
ask?
policy.
Why do we ask
I mean,
them to release medical
Eleanor Roosevelt's
records?
bad
Who cares? What do you, I don't
Yeah,
understand.
who
And
cares?
any
Who
of you
cares
guys,
about
you
the
just
mental
watch
fitness
clips.
of the? No. Destiny comes in and tells us how important this office is. The office is important, but you come and say, "Oh yeah, he could be fucking comatose," and it's like not a big deal. I guess the country will run itself. Like I don't know if this is like a serious argument. I don't know if you're trolling, right? But I'm
would rather
assuming
we
you're
would all-
trolling.
We all would rather have a comatose Biden in office than a DeSantis or a Trump. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
how about
Sure,
that?
we would all want that, but that's a different question than what voters
but
want, especially
he
swing
literally
voters who are
wouldn't be in
fucking
office.
morons.
Listen,
Look, while we're on the topic of
proof
his health,
is-
I would ask Destiny a question really fast. Destiny, you in particular, have you seen what RFK sounds like?
not much. I've seen scant little about that guy, but he seems like a joke, so I haven't followed him much.
Watch one video and you'll understand why it's really good for Biden's image in terms of public health to be next to RFK.
Yeah, but I mean,
Like,
it's not about like making him look good. It's setting the expectation now that every future president needs to be ready to defend his presidency against his own party.
It absolutely
fuck
should be
that.
the
Right,
case.
stop,
No.
Really quick,
Actually,
really quick.
so
Stop. Why is that a bad precedent to set, Destiny?
what I was just
curious.
going to say, buddy. Like,
Because-
let's
because-
say
Wait for
this.
me. I'm sorry.
Because once you've had one term as president, and when you're going to be facing a challenger from the opposition, your party should be behind you 100%. You should have a united front. Unless you've done some serious fuck shit, you should have a united front so that you are ready to fight the opposing establishment as much as you can.
No, and this is where I disagree. I think that so outside of this particular race, okay, putting this particular race outside, I think by principle, yes, it is healthier for a party, right, for both parties, if they actually have to be challenged constantly. Like power should always be challenged, without a doubt. And it would be great if a Biden had to answer those questions. I think it's better for the country as a whole, beyond like the current fights of today. It's better for the country as a whole if the people in power are constantly on that edge. Yes, he should answer. Why didn't he follow through with his promises from the left? Go ahead.
Why do you think Bernie just flat out endorsed Biden? And like, why do you think that is?
I think
He doesn't want to cross this.
Yeah. I
Bernie
think
sucks or what?
so. No, I
Bernie's-
love.
he's-
Well, hold
he's
on.
fell
No,
asleep or what?
no. I'll tell you. I think Bernie is amazing in terms of his policies. I love him. Right, the best that we have. But in terms of as a politician, I think he's very weak. And I think he loves Biden. He just like loves Biden as a person. He's made that very clear during the last campaign that he just likes him as his friend and he doesn't want to challenge him. I think it's sad, but it is what it is.
I thought the issue was
Ain't
that Bernie
no
said that he was
way.
getting emails from, I think the email address was like hclint@yahoo.com, where it was just like a whole bunch of pictures of Seth Richards' dead body, and that's why he decided not to.
No,
announce
so
the candidacy.
the reason that he's
Wait,
not
I mean,
running.
you seriously? Wait, did he seriously make an argument that Bernie's not running because Biden's his friend?
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that. Well, I
ain't
think.
no
I think.
way,
Hold on, I
bro.
think there's multiple reasons,
Bernie's
right?
gonna croak, bro. You got many more chances, dude.
Oh,
Bernie and
oh,
Biden are like
Bernie-
the same age.
oh, and now IRI. Now he remembers that age is a factor. It's amazing, right? Yes, Bernie has multiple reasons why he's not running. Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to go through a campaign again. Maybe it's just because of his age. He is slightly older than President Biden. Yeah, I guess that puts him at a disadvantage. Whatever, right?
Wait.
But his mental
I didn't
faculties
say
are certainly
I
there.
want to correct one thing. Slightly is an exaggeration. It's not. It's 1 year. Those
It's
things can be,
one
like-
year, exactly.
Me and my
right?
me and
But
my little
now
sibling
IRI
are like
gets it.
further
Now
apart.
age matters, right? But you can see,
Oh,
you can
come
literally
on.
see a difference in the median period
I'm not
between
saying Bernie's
Biden
disqualified.
and Bernie.
You're saying Biden's should be disqualified. I'm not saying Bernie should be disqualified because of his age. You're the one making this argument that his age needs to be tested on stage. I say put the man in some short shorts, let him do some push-ups. I don't. Give
I
a
would say
fuck.
the same thing
He
about
can
Bernie.
be,
Bert-
no,
go
but
ahead, go
this isn't either or. This is both and. Yeah, he can go run on the beach all he wants, and he can also on the debate stage show that he's competent and can respond in real time to opponents who are critiquing him. Probably both from the eco-fash right and also various slightly more sane people from the left.
But IRI, share your secret motivation of wanting sexy Biden clips.
Well, I just think people are concerned that he's physically not healthy, so show him being physically healthy. You know.
Like standing on a stage, like talking about his ideas, being good with the delivery, showing that like it's
Listen,
not
no,
dementia,
no.
it is literally just a speech
No,
impediment, showing the
the
truth for what
problem
it
is you guys. The problem is you guys just see
But not like
clips
that.
like our friends on the right that are negative. You see him falling over on stage. Meanwhile, he stood on stage for 2 hours shaking every single Air Force cadet's hand, 921 of them.
and all
So you
that
don't talk
anyone will
about that. He
care
just-
is
he
about the
falls
fall.
off
And all
right
the
there.
people
IRI,
are aware
let
that he has the ability to
You gotta let
stand.
IRI finish. Once IRI is finished, you can respond. IRI, are you done?
No, my whole point is the guy's out there giving speeches. He just had an address from the Oval Office that went perfectly, not one single flub, no mistake. It was good. He gives speeches all the time, has no problems, but people don't want to pay attention to that. I think that's a
yeah.
little unfair. You guys are victims of clip.
If he can do all of that, he can do a debate. Right. The logic of he's very competent, and I've watched all of his speeches, is great for like a super politically informed voter. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people just get like very basic info from the news. They're just seeing clips on Twitter. They're just seeing clips on the local news, all of which is conservative led, right? Like
IRI's argument is that like, why don't you pay attention to all the planes that didn't crash? Right? Like that's like people understand. You understand how the media works. You understand how people work. I hope you do. That yes, people look at the disaster. They look at the catastrophe, and all they see, right, is Biden falling over. They see him like stuttering over his words, and I can understand that he might have given a 2-hour speech beforehand in which he didn't stutter a single word. But when he's falling all over himself, when it's clear that he can't follow what's going on completely, that's the clips that are spread. That's how that works.
And yet you guys think people are going to watch an hour debate and somehow come to a different conclusion. Nobody's going to watch the debate, dude. What makes you guys think if they're not going to watch speeches, why would they watch the debate?
People need to watch those TikTok clips. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, watch clips.
Stop.
Exactly.
IRI, do you know how many people watched the last presidential debates?
Look, I know it's entertainment, but you're talking Trump versus Biden.
I guess it's not important now.
But you don't think that people would tune in? Like, even I think it would be in the millions.
To see Biden debate Marianne Williamson, the
RFK, see Joe Dark Brandon Biden get to dunk on anti-vaxxers. I would love that. I'd watch that.
It is always in the millions. It is always in the millions, and it's beyond that. Like I said previously, right? It's not even just that time, that live event, especially since especially within our digital media diet, right? It's not just that one time. It's the clips that are created. It's the news analysis that's done. It's the buzz that's generated that gets people talking. Dude, it's so much more than that, and you know that.
Okay.
Put Biden on Wheel of Jeopardy, you'll get more viewers and more people think he's smart. Nobody's going to watch those debates.
You are the most basic Biden bot I've ever met.
To Prime, to SDL.
I think that the real thing that we're not talking about here, and this is really the heart of it, okay? The real thing is progressives don't like Biden. They want to see him stutter, and they're hoping they can get another progressive in it. That's actually what's going on here. Because if this was a fucking progressive president, if it was fucking Bernie Sanders or fucking Elizabeth Warren,
nice try.
Like Hillary Clinton should be able to primary them. I would give it my fucking
nice fucking try. No, nice try. Nice try. Like literally, I said before. I already said it when Bernie got brought up. I said Bernie that I would be fine with Bernie being challenged. Right? Like I'm fine with a person on left. And the principle, okay, whatever. All right, dude. Yeah. Well, it's easy for you to make up the hypothetical, and then for me to fail that hypothetical that you made up. You gotta work that.
That's why I did it. Yeah.
I will kill, vote, and die for Joe Biden.
Given the fact, right, that you all, the SDL Synth and Prime, you have all said variations of, they just play these clips of the bad incidences that Biden's have. That's how the average voter is seeing him. What is to keep another bad clip from coming up if he goes on this debate stage and say he doesn't win and say he doesn't do well, he has a flub, he has some sort of incident, and that clip gets played over and over and over again.
So
it's somebody else's car crash. It's somebody else's car crash, Wick. We can watch Joe Biden dunk on someone else. People want to see something bad happen. They just don't care who it happens to. If it's the case that we're watching somebody like RFK bomb a point or Marianne Williamson get shit on by Joe Biden, that's absolutely the kind of thing that people are going to want to see.
I'm talking about the reverse. Let me be more clear. Say, for whatever reason, RFK, is blessed by the gods for the day to have a coherent point and suddenly gets a snappy clip against Biden, and that going into the general challengers is then now circulated throughout the media. It's just reinforces.
So much worse if that kind of stuff happens with.
Right?
Sorry for interrupting, but it's going to be so much worse. If you think that's the kind of thing that could happen to Biden, it's going to be so much worse with somebody who's actually good at rhetoric, like Donald Trump is up against him.
There's a reason that football teams, when they're ahead, hold the ball and just don't move and don't make a play. I know a sports reference may not be working in this.
I don't even
case.
know how
I
that
have
works.
no
I don't know how
idea.
sports
No
ball
I
works.
idea what you
understand,
just
but
said.
when
They
they
hold the-
only have minute
throw
left
it.
and they're ahead, they don't try to make a play to get score and get even further ahead.
Sure,
they
you run the
hold the
clock.
ball and
Yeah.
just sit there
So-
because they know that the possibility for error is just so great. So I'm just
Wait,
curious.
how far ahead is Biden? How many votes did he win by in the swing states? Do you recall?
Depends on the swing state. I know it was
Just to
what
give you-
20,000 from Pennsylvania, 50,000
So
maybe.
it was total about 300,000 across swing states. Like not a lot. If he loses like 0.1% of the margin, he gets into the danger zone really quick. I don't think that we're in this very nice safe spot where Biden is so popular that we can just rest on our laurels. We did real well in the midterms. Part of that's because Democrats are increasingly winning college-educated voters who turn out real well in the midterms, and Republicans are increasingly getting non-college educated voters who don't turn out well in the midterms. We can't rely on that being true in every presidential election. It's
Fair
that simple.
Dude,
Good, fair.
we have
go ahead.
abortion on the ballot. Plus, we have Donald Trump and all his craziness. The extreme candidates is what lost the Republicans the midterms. That's not going anywhere. Abortion's not going anywhere for years. Like we got this. It's
I
a
want to give
layup.
space to Fairy Queen to get in. I know she's probably the less yelly here, so go ahead, Fairy Queen. I'm going to give you some space. Go ahead.
To be very, very clear. So, Cynthia, you mentioned, like, for instance, in the 1976 presidential election involving Gerald Ford. I'm really curious to see what source you're looking. I haven't been talking because I've been trying to fact check myself. I'm on Wikipedia right now. I'm looking at Gerald Ford, the presidency. The only televised presidential debate that I can find underneath 1976 was between Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter. Now, there was a challenger from Ronald Reagan during that time, but I haven't been able to find any specific debate that happened between him, hosted by the RNC in 1976. So if that
I got
exists,
you.
I could be wrong, but I accept that I might be wrong. But that's at least what I'm seeing here.
No, got it for you.
No, for sure. So if I'm wrong, please fact check me. But I think like the heart of the issue that that Wick is getting to, what I would like to get to, what is unique about this particular election? What makes it different than when Obama was the incumbent, when Clinton was the incumbent, when any other Democratic president was the incumbent? Why this particular presidential debate? What makes
Sure.
this? Because this hasn't happened for so many other incumbencies when they have been president. Why now? Why in 2024 when we have
I think all
as a potential presidential candidate, and Joe Biden, as moderate and as boring and as sleepy as you want to call him, is the only person who has the proven track record of beating him? Why?
Sure.
Why throw that away?
I'll give a two-part answer. First, I think all three of us would have supported primaries, like, period. It seems like all of us think that primaries are part of a genuinely participatory democracy where there's real engagement and real debate of ideas. It's hard to get that without primaries, without debates as much as possible. So I think, yeah, we would have supported it in the past. But two, the Democratic Party is a coalition. It's been a coalition for a long time, and that coalition is more diverse and more divided than it's been in a long time. So if you want to have that sort of participatory democracy where ideas are shared, where people are actually debate the positions, you need to have a real primary process.
Yeah, we had one.
Dude.
Like
Yeah,
6
we
years ago.
did.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and
Exactly.
those debates were really helpful for changing policy discourse in this country. $15 minimum wage is now mainstream policy. 42 of 50 Democrats in the
And
Senate
Biden
voted
failed
for
at that.
it because of those debates.
Yeah, 42 Dems voted when they knew it would fail. You have no idea how much support you'd have for a 15-hour minimum wage if it was up for a legitimate vote. Number one. Number two, well, then the next set of primaries, you can also push that discourse. But pushing the discourse
and
is
those
not
primaries
worth
should be right now.
jeopardizing our incumbent advantage.
It's not.
Look,
he's still the president.
everybody-
He still flies on a goddamn fucking plane that can survive a nuke. Okay, he's gonna do okay. He's got a great incumbent advantage.
Look,
Well, but
Googled-
if you lose the incumbency, then you don't have the incumbent advantage,
Can I,
right?
can I ask real quick, SDL, what is the incumbent advantage? You keep bringing it up and mentioning it. Can you explain it to maybe the less educated in my audience?
I mean, I'm sure IRI and Destiny can explain it as well, but broadly, candidates who are incumbents do something like 3 to 5 points better, just in general, sort of regardless of whatever the partisan conditions are, regardless of how pro-Republican, pro-Democrat, or whatever. Candidates who are currently in office just do way better than a generic candidate does. So it's good to hold office if you want to win future elections.
Okay. Do you disagree with that, or any additions to that definition, IRI or Destiny or?
No,
Ferris?
I think it's easier to run for a job when you're already doing the job and proving to people that you can do it competently. But I don't understand this idea that Biden only ran for one term. I looked it up on Google because I never heard this, and I saw that he was like hinting at it, but never like said it. You guys are acting like he looked into the camera.
Wait, real quick, because I remember this very specifically because it was something that I was very critical on. Is when he was running during the primary process, I remember distinctly him saying that he was probably only going to be there for one term. I think it was in response to people questioning his age. It was really fucking stupid. I didn't think at the time he was going to follow it, but it was a really dumb statement to make. But he did make that
But
statement.
he made no commitment. Like, I will only
He didn't make a
run one
formal
term.
commitment, but he did say, yeah.
Okay, so fine. But here's the thing. Everybody knows that when you run for president, you're going to get your ass kicked in the first midterms. That's what history shows. So it's always a two-term thing. Like, nobody spends $2 billion to run for president so you can do 4 years and peace out.
True.
It's just silly to think that anyone would even do that. And that's the biggest argument DeSantis has right now against Trump. Why would you want to get this guy in? I can get 8 years. That guy can get only 4. It's a
True.
huge advantage. But I'm still laughing at my friend Prime and others who are such Biden stands that they want to show how competent Biden is by putting him on that stage to demolish other people. I'm not buying it for a second. You guys are so full of shit, man.
No, hold on, because you are deep. You are deep in this like a Biden DNC thing. Like I think you are literally just like downloading your points like from the DNC website. That's literally all I've heard of you this entire time. But if you were actually engaging, but IRI, if you were actually engaging with this conversation, right, without like jerking yourself off to Biden's image right this moment, you would know that we've already said that it's literally the principle of the matter. That it's better for a democracy when there's more debate, where there's more discussion, with this challenging of power. That we're talking about not just this particular race, right, but putting an infrastructure in place where we do this, right? Even if it's the case that this is not within the American tradition, it should be within the American tradition, and it makes us all stronger.
But Prime, why is now the occasion to introduce that tradition right now when we're potentially facing against
When
Donald
will it
Trump?
ever be? When will power ever like to be challenged? You tell
But
me.
they
What is the date? No, tell me.
Republicans do it.
What is the date, right? What's the year that power will enjoy being challenged? Fairy Queen,
Right.
please.
Here's the thing.
Oh, you can
If
go.
Bernie was
Fair-
president,
No, I was talking to Fairy Queen. Fairy Queen, no. Fairy Queen asked me a question, I responded. Fairy Queen, please answer. When will power enjoy being challenged?
I don't know if it'll ever enjoy being challenged, but what I do know is that people will never enjoy being hungry. Will never enjoy potentially having Russia gaining more and more territory.
What?
We'll never
What does that have to do with anything?
COVID-19 because we don't have a competent president in office. And the fact of the matter is, if you allow like his incumbency to be challenged, for the DNC to allow an incumbent president to be challenged in a primary for the first time in history, that has never happened, at least according to what I've seen so far, and to do so not only to somebody who's an incumbent, but for somebody who has served as vice president for 8 years, shows that even the DNC believes that the Biden is inadequate.
He is inadequate. And hold on. No, regardless of whatever the DNC,
even if that's true, it's stupid for the DNC to try to promote that to the wide amount.
And this is like the same ostrich head in the sand BS that allowed that made the DNC believe that Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. This is the same, like, not dealing with the issue, understanding that yes, you can say that he's great, he's fantastic. You can deploy Biden bots like IRI all you want, but people still are going to feel the way they feel. They absolutely do. Now, it doesn't change.
Wait, but Hillary had debates with Bernie. She crushed him.
She crushed him so poorly that he got like 45% of the final vote. She did really bad. She should have done way better. He started polling at like 2%.
Yeah, he might have started polling at like 2%, but she obliterated him. Did he have 45%
No, she didn't.
of the what? Like in the bluest of states?
She didn't.
In all the states where it mattered, where the support was going to matter,
in
the final general, he.
First of all, Destiny literally doesn't matter like how. Again, this only proves our point. If Hillary Clinton was so great, and it wasn't a big challenge anyway, so then it shouldn't matter. So why shouldn't we do it any which way, right? That's fine. But the thing that you guys are afraid of is that Biden is weak, right? That like the world will see what we'll get a preview of what's going to happen in the fall.
No.
Not at all. This is a guy who told the president of the United States to shut up, man, on live
Then he'll do.
television when he
Then he'll
debated
do
Donald
fine.
Trump.
No matter who jumps in, he'll do fine.
Just let IRI finish. Go
Look,
ahead, IRI.
these guys, it doesn't matter what they say because the people that actually know what's going on out there, like people that would be real contenders, have all stepped back to sit on the bench and warm it up until 2028. So I don't know why you guys think you know so much. Why do people like Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, why are these people not running? You think they're just so subservient to the party? Like, yes, I'll do whatever the party says? No, they know their moment is now, but they know that the best advantage for the Democrats is to get behind the old man and get him across the finish line.
Because they're waiting for 2028. They don't want to be seen as a traitor to the party. Did you see what like when Sinema left the party, she's now getting like 5% support among Democrats. They don't want to be seen as crossing Biden.
No.
But if it's a
What
real
they saw-
primary the DNC really supports, that people are really engaged in, that we participate in as part of our democracy, we like make this, hey, this is part of the legitimacy of our process, then yeah, they'll participate. People would gladly turn out for that. Newsom isn't doing that because he wants to run in 28. It's that simple.
I think what they saw was Biden had a flurry of legislative victories with the bills that passed, and they saw him accomplishing things here. Nobody can deny that. The infrastructure bill, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, all these bills were tremendous. And then they were still cautious, but the midterms came and the Republicans got their ass kicked. We even increased our seats in the Senate. That never happens. And they said, okay, this guy's got something, so we're going to back him.
But you keep talking about what the voters want. 80% of Democratic primary voters want a debate, right?
I've never heard this in my life. It feels so astroturfed. I never once in my life did I think, man, if only we had more debates, our democracy would be stronger. I don't know where this comes from. Like, I've never heard anyone make this argument until recently with Marianne, because she wants to get on TV, as Destiny said, to sell more books. These people do not have a real chance. They're not going to push Biden in any directions. They're not Bernie Sanders, who's going to somehow push him more progressive. They're clowns.
Ooh.
Sure. The current crop is currently just 3 candidates. It's Marianne Williamson.
And by the way, you should not want these people up there if you're progressive, because Marianne Williamson will set back Medicare for all worse than not having a debate on it.
Well, and that's why it should be a real primary, so real progressives can primary, right? Like, this is the argument that keeps coming over. If we don't have a real primary, you're only going to get cranks declaring they're running against.
Do you have a? Can you give me a name of someone you would consider a real contender?
From the progressive side, I mean, Newsom might actually run. What's his face? The Colorado governor. He's sort of a neoliberal, but he's a progressive neoliberal, and he could run on like weed, which he's done a great job on. He would probably run on that.
No, you would have like Ro Khanna or something if you were going to have a serious progressive candidate.
Go on.
Go ahead.
Answer that question. Then I have a question for IRI side.
No,
Okay,
I think
side.
Ro Khanna. Oh, I was just going to agree. I think Ro Khanna would be an interesting choice for the progressives to put up.
To Destiny, IRI, and Fairy Queen. The 1980 challenge, right, of Jimmy Carter was mentioned. Given that Jimmy Carter was, in hindsight, pretty fucked, right? Like, he wasn't going to win. If the DNC had given more support to the challenger, I believe at the time was Ted Kennedy, perhaps Reagan would not have won in the general election. Perhaps with a stronger candidate, the Democrats would have had a better chance. So why not, right? If Biden is polling underwater, right now, and that continues, assuming it does continue, right? Why wouldn't we want to at least give a better shot, right, to the Democrats as a whole, right? Like, why wouldn't we want to at least have an option, another warrior on standby? Like, why? I just don't see the harm, and I mean, I get it. Why? Whereas there could be a gaffe or something, but I don't get the harm.
Because one of the biggest advantages that the Democrat Party has right now is that it appears to be unified and it appears to be relatively sane in comparison to the Republican Party. Right now, the Republican Party has 2 major divides in the party: those that want to vote for DeSantis and those that want to vote for Donald Trump. That divide is ripping the party apart. In order for the Democrats to continue to maintain power, not only in the presidency, but also in the House and also in the Senate, we need to have a united front. We need to look like the moderate, sane party that is able to get things done, that is able to supply what we need to our constituents. And if we entertain primary debates from people like RFK, from people like Marianne Williamson, from people who might run, but we have no idea if they're going to run, then it makes us look like we, A, don't believe in the people who we've elected and who represent us, and B, that everything that the Republican Party is smearing the Democratic Party right now is true, right? we need to have a united front. And I appreciate you mentioning the 1980 election. One of the reasons why that was catastrophic, because you're right, Jimmy Carter wasn't polling very well. It's very possible that he probably would not have won in the 1980 election. However,
not probably, definitely, even without the challenge, there was no way, no chance,
but
zero.
the losses were bigger than merely him losing the presidency in 1980. Up until about 1980, and this is according to a book called Camelot's End by John Ward, the Democrats have been the dominant party since FDR and the New Deal for much of the 20th century. But once the civil rights movement kicked off, they began to quickly lose the South, which is why Jimmy Carter's history as a Southerner, his Southern roots, helped him maintain power, particularly Democratic power within the South. Unfortunately, when so much bruising and so much division happened between the party, when Kennedy was constantly fighting with Jimmy Carter on the national stage, it showed that the party was divided. And
Yes,
and many of those parties that had historically voted blue because of Jimmy Carter's influences switched to red, and they instead chose to vote for Ronald Reagan. We can't just worry about the presidency. We have to worry about the House of Representatives. We have to worry about the Senate. And if we show that we are divided and we don't have a united front, we will lose much, much more than merely the presidency.
We've heard the united front point several times, right? But you gave two supporting arguments there, an A argument and a B argument. I just want to know, why would we believe either of those? You gave two supporting arguments. You labeled one A, one B. Why would we believe either of the supporting arguments you gave? I mean, you can start with the B argument if you want, which is that you think it'll be the case that we have this sort of standard set of us not believing in our candidate. And it seems like we actually would believe more in our candidate if we're willing to have the candidate's ideas challenged. So what's the supporting argument for B first?
Okay, well, first of all, because the DNC has never hosted an incumbent debate in the primaries. So for them to do that uniquely for this particular presidency shows that they don't believe in this president.
Why would it show that they don't believe in the president if they do it now?
Because they've never done that for an incumbent before in the past.
Why does this connect? Why does we haven't done this before mean that if we do it now, it shows we don't trust our president?
Because
how does it not? It's literally like, imagine if you're the CEO and you run a company, and after like 2 years, somebody's like, you're going to make a decision. Like, wait, hold on. Let's just vote to see if we all agree with this decision. You're undermining the person rather than saying like, we trust you to run your second term well. Well, hold on. Let's see if there are any challengers first. Of course, it's undermining. You're saying by default, like, we should test this out just in case you're not fit for the job.
No, we're not saying test it out just in case. We're saying look at how strong our president is. Even facing challenges, you're not going to be able to get rid of him. Like here's our president facing a challenge. There's nobody to get rid of him.
Nobody thinks like that. That's like
you can say nobody thinks like that, right? But you haven't given an argument for why people think the way that you're saying. You just said like, what if you gave an analogy? You gave an analogy, but there's no reason to believe that in the case of like if a CEO comes to the board meeting, slaps his dick on the table and says, I dare you to try to vote me out, that he doesn't look stronger and instead he looks weaker.
No, nobody in the history of like voting for the confidence of like a CEO or taking like referendums for parties or whatever, nobody does this to say, look how strong I am. You do this when you want to challenge leadership.
Other people will suggest this if they want to challenge leadership. People like Marianne Williamson and people like RFK are already challenging the leadership. These are the outsiders challenging the leadership. If the leader slaps his dick on the table and says, I dare you to challenge me, he looks stronger, not weaker. When people like RFK, and Marianne Williamson are going onto places like Fox News and saying the president won't host a primary debate, it looks really, really, really bad for us. It makes us look weak. It makes us look afraid.
At all. They just look hungry for attention.
Look, you have to give an actual
justify this, and you were asked to justify this, Fair Queen. Go ahead.
So I can give you, I mean, it's from fiction, but the quote still stands from Joffrey Baratheon and his grandfather, Tywin. What does he say? Any man that must say, I am the king is no true king, right?
True.
That is true in the CEO. It's true in the boardroom. It's true for kings. It's true for presidents.
I'm a surgeon.
Fairy Queen just won the debate. Like, it's over.
You think that you're not worthy. It's a sign that people don't take you seriously. And the same is true like in our everyday life. Like, the guy that comes into the room who's super alpha and talks about how strong he is, how he's going to dominate, everyone knows that person is the weakest person in the room the second he walks in. Real strength,
I feel called out.
Doesn't even tell you. It's like there's another quote from Margaret
That's
Thatcher.
The point. Wait, no, Fairy Queen. That's the entire point. He could show it instead of just like forcing no competition from the opposition.
He is showing it by
to quote another piece of fiction, with great power comes great responsibility. He has the responsibility to be challenged.
Pretenders to the throne.
It's
Let-
like
let me
having
try-
a
let me
leader
try
come
and
in
speak to
and
this
say
a
like,
bit.
oh, let's take a vote of no confidence. I'm so confident in my leadership. I'm gonna take a vote of no confidence to prove it. Like that's just like nobody thinks
If
this
there's
way.
if there's a small group of individuals who are saying that you're not fit for leadership, and you say, okay, let's take a vote. Let's see how many people actually think that. It seems like it's a small
Because
minority.
now
You don't look weaker.
No, because now I understand what you're thinking, but this is like a movie plot. In reality, now you've blown up and legitimized. You've legitimized the fuck out of that talking point. It's like, oh well, hold on. Now we're having a vote of no confidence. Now people are going to be thinking about this a lot more. Like, why would you do that? There's literally no point in doing that, right? Arguably, this is where Brexit came from. Was Cameron put up a referendum they didn't think anybody was actually going to fucking vote on, and now the country has fucking destroyed itself. Like, why would you even begin to do this? Right?
It's already public discourse. There's not going to be a debate happening. That's the reason we're all having a conversation on it. If
SPL,
it's the-
give it a try.
Go ahead.
Well, and so one thing I wanted to speak to is that a constant Republican talking point this election is going to be that the last one is rigged. Trump, if he wins, is going to say that the election was stolen from him. One of the ways of arguing for Biden's Democratic legitimacy is for him to do a lot of this, like directly engaging in this primary process, show that he's an extremely popular, extremely healthy candidate who can recenter things on policy, right? The more
Wait, I'm
clips
sorry,
you get
what?
out there.
Did Trump have debates when he was an incumbent? No. So how could he even possibly use his argument?
Because so he made this argument about Bernie, right? He said that Bernie, the primaries are rigged. He's just going to say that the DNC is putting in this like corpse. They're walking through the corpse because they know they have no other real candidate. And if we show, hey, one, this isn't a corpse. Two, he's got some great policy points. Like, for example, Trump wants to abolish the minimum wage. Biden wants like, I don't know, probably 11 or something. But if we show that, hey, he's a real candidate who actually fucking matters, who like has points that actually would be good for the country, that delegitimizes the point that this is an undemocratic election.
For Obama, we didn't ask that from Clinton, and we didn't ask that from a long line of other presidential candidates.
This is a really weak argument because
we
the Democratic Party,
asked that from this specific president.
the Democratic Party didn't used to be internally democratic until the 60s anyway. Like
And
the things they're talking about are all modern institutions. We create institutions for our purposes.
That's exactly right. And your primaries like haven't happened throughout the history of the country. Like that's even itself a newer thing, any which way. But whatever, right? I don't know what this argument is. Well, we haven't done it before, so I guess we can't do it now. Well, welcome to the Republican Party. Thank you for being a conservative. It hadn't happened. There's no tradition of this happening, so I don't want it to happen now because it scares me. No, I don't. Who cares, right? Like, we're talking about making a fundamental shift. At least I'm talking about that. Maybe I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm talking about making a fundamental shift, a principle shift that actually strengthens our party. This thing about like a united front, that is an illusion. That is an establishment illusion that the party is all united here, right? We're all behind our guy. But like obviously that we aren't. We have disaffected voters, right? And you talk to those disaffected voters who would most likely vote Democrat. They say, I don't have anyone in this party that's speaking to me, right? And you talk to marginal voters who are like on the fence about these things. They're like, well, like, why am I voting for Biden? A guy that I don't believe in. IRI thinks that everyone who's ever voted for a Democrat still loves Biden, but the rest of us understand that this president is weak. So this will be a perfect time to start this tradition.
First of all, Biden does support $15 minimum wage. SDL.
No,
he
he
did it
doesn't.
for federal workers. And okay, so why did he give
There's
it to
difference for federal
workers
workers and for
contractors?
all.
He also included a Build Back
if
Better,
you
but
need
the Senate.
Congress to support it or not, right? That's the
Yes,
difference.
the Senate. He had it in Build Back Better, the original $1.9 trillion bill, but the Senate parliamentarians said he couldn't include it.
the
Bernie
Senate
tried to fight that,
parliamentarian.
couldn't win the
That's
support of his
good.
colleagues because they all hate him.
No, that's great, and that's the type of things that he could highlight with the free airtime of a debate, right?
Need the free airtime. He's the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Okay, well
He
then
can have
why
a
does he
press
do anything
conference and
ever?
the whole world
Yeah,
will listen.
yeah. Why does he ever have a media event? He's the president of the United States. What's the point
What
of
about the
that?
State of the Union? And they
Nobody
tend
ever
to-
listens to his press junkets except all of you hyper online, like all of us. I should be clear, all
Wait,
of us hyper
wait,
online,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
hyper
How
informed
many
voters,
people do you
right?
think watch SPL? How many people do you think watch the State of the Union, like nationally?
The State of the Union's a bit different. It's like the
Is it?
speech.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
the speech. But again, as the
He
incumbent,
said press junkets.
does
He
he
said-
need, right? I understand press junkets, but I'm illustrating the point that press junkets are the only platform that a sitting incumbent president has. If the
Sure.
president were to make, right, like Clinton did before he launched some attacks into Iraq, the bombings and stuff, he would call a press conference. He had a thing where he asked the studios to give him the airtime, and they did because he was the president. If he wanted to
But that
go
was
this
for a
route,
war.
he absolutely could, and they would do it for other reasons too.
Biden wouldn't be
Not
saying,
just
"Hey, I'm
for
doing a
war,
war." He'd be saying, "Hey, I love the $15 minimum wage." That's
He would
different. You
obviously
can't ask
do it in
CNN
a
to give you the
different
mic
way, right?
for talking about your policies. Like he could host a town hall or something, but you know what else works is these debates. He can do a town hall and these debates,
Do you
right?
think the
It's additive.
CNN town hall went well for Trump?
I didn't watch it. I don't care.
I think it did for his particular purposes. It did.
So why
Destiny,
can't, why
I'm
can't
gonna.
Biden
I want.
just do a Trump?
Can I
a
clear up
I
one
mean,
thing
he
before
can.
we move
I
on?
want to.
I want to clear up one thing before we move on. I think this might help to keep the conversation from looping because I think I figured out the reason why we keep looping on one of these points. So Fairy Queen, you made this argument in regards to it hasn't been the precedent in the past and now it would change. Do you understand? Like that argument only works to support your point if it's the case your point is correct. And if it's the case that your conclusion is false, it doesn't support your conclusion. Because I think that's the reason we keep looping. It's like you kind of like.
That was
Go
a
ahead,
little confusing for me. Can you restate
Yeah,
that?
sure. What I'm saying is your argument only supports your conclusion if your conclusion's already correct. If your conclusion's false, then it doesn't support your conclusion. It's a circular argument. Like it's a kind of like method of like. Have you heard of the phrase begging the question before?
Yes, I've heard
I
the
do.
phrase begging the question.
The argument begs the question, right? If it's the case that your conclusion isn't true, then it's not supporting evidence for your conclusion anymore.
Let me
Like, it's only
restate, let me restate this in a non-autistic way. What he's saying is that arguing
Jesus.
for the case that we continue tradition is only good if the tradition itself is true. So we shouldn't make an argument for the continuation of the tradition. We should make an argument for the tradition itself. It would be similar in the 1700s or 1800s to be like, oh yeah, like we should keep slavery because we've had slavery. He's arguing that's not a good answer. He wants something to justify the institution of slavery. Or in this case, which is really the same thing, the institution of not debating our incumbent. That's
It is the same thing. Thank you.
I have a few. I want to take this kind of this pause really quick to earn some money, read some super chats out, right? And there's some questions that might drive the discussion a little bit forward. $10 from Cryborn to say what other undemocratic practices should we accept as Democrat. $10 from Cormac to say this is a unique election season because Biden was clearly running for 4 years to beat Trump. Nobody voted for Biden, thinking they'd have him for 8 years. $20 from No
No
Step on
shot.
Snake to say if God forbid Biden were to seriously decline or pass away before the election, should Kamala Harris be similarly coronated or should she have to fight for it? $2 from Madarius to say thanks for reading my comment, Wick. $5 from Cormac to say who needs super delegates when you have DNC hacks like RRI? Sorry, RRI. $10 from Royal Flammel to say it could be that Joe Biden performs weakly on stage and that compromises his image, but why would we wager another 4 years of good policy being passed because he isn't sharp on stage? It's a dumb idea. $2 from Greeny Odias to say Lars for President, RVB was a good YouTube show. And $5 from Art by Pep to say Prime, is that principle worth the cost of the country? If we split the vote enough for the GOP to win, feels like a Pyrrhic victory.
I will address this. Thank you so much. Right, and giving this spotlight back to me where it belongs. So I think that there was always this argument, right? In fact, RRI, right, made this argument previously. He talked about like how, well, you know, we're the same party, right? And people are going to vote for us because Republicans are so bad. Like this is what the establishment bots don't seem to understand. That I don't seem to get. This idea of this incoming threat, right? This ever-present of the Republicans doesn't always work, right? People aren't always convinced of that. Like we have disaffected voters
Do you
because
think
you
it works
actually
now during this
aren't-
debate or during this season? Do you think that the Trump or DeSantis, do you not think that there are serious threats?
I think there's Trump fatigue. I think what we saw during Trump's candidacy
Again, do
and
you
what
think
happened.
that Trump and DeSantis are serious threats to democracy in America?
I do, yes, I
Okay.
do. But hold
Okay.
on. No, don't just throw that out. I do think that. I personally do. But like that's not how like the average voter like follows politics. A lot of them don't like consider this like a make or break. But when you tell them everything's always emergency, right? And like the only thing that you can rest on because you have nothing to provide, the only thing that you can rest on is that the other side is worse. Yeah, that's a really fucking weak argument. So what I wanted to do previously, right? If Destiny could stop stuffing his fucking face, could you engage with us and tell us like about these disaffected voters? What is the argument that we're making to them? People who like would vote, like who are gettable, right, to the polls, who are Democratic leading in their affect, but who don't come out because no one speaks to them. You don't even give them a chance to have someone that might excite them. And then, like even if Biden wins, right? So like Gavin Newsom, let's say he's the exciting candidate. if even if Biden beats Gavin Newsom, what will happen? He'll take in some of his arguments, some of his points, like with Bernie, and then maybe pull in some of his voters. How do we get those people without that kind of discussion? Please.
I mean, what do you mean? Just look at his legislative record. You've got the American Rescue Act. You've got the Infrastructure Investment Plan. You've got the Inflation Reduction Act. Like, I mean, he managed to bring down. People said that inflation was going to last on gas for fucking years, and it lasted for months. People said that we were going to be in World War III. We're not. People said that. I mean, I don't know. What do we know? Point. Like, I know that Biden's approval record is low right now, but I feel like he's still looking at the CHIPS Act. Like, what?
But that's manifestly the problem. I look. You can. Biden does have points to make, right? Like as to why he should be the president. He absolutely does. But despite all that, despite everything you just said, still his approval rating is where it's at. Still, people don't feel that way.
I don't know what you want me to say. Does he need to dress up like in a Rey Mysterio WWE mask and start?
I think we should just like make his point. I think he should make his point. I think like he should be able to make that point within.
I think his record speaks for itself, and I think
it clearly doesn't.
I think when we go into the general, I think that we'll get. I think right now people have a lot of anxiety for a lot of different reasons, but when we start hashing out records in the general, I think we'll get a much clearer picture of where the American people stand. Like that's why I don't take polling, for instance, on like 15 an hour minimum wage. I'm not going to take it seriously unless it's a debate that's being actively had over something. Like people will have opinions about things that aren't being tested, but once they see those things on stage fighting with each other, the opinions shift like pretty substantially.
That's
I
an
think
argument
that Bloomberg was a perfect
primary
example.
debate.
What?
Why?
If you want to argue about things being tested and things being hashed out, that's an argument for having primary debates.
There's nobody
right?
serious in the Democratic. Those debates aren't helping.
We've already done this. This is the
Yeah, I know
catch-22.
we are.
Just
Yeah,
a loop.
we are.
The other side just
Okay.
loops over and over again.
All right,
Let
go
me
ahead
add
if you
something.
wanted to.
I just want to say, why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? It worked in 2020 to beat Trump, and it's going to be Biden versus Trump or Trump light DeSantis. Why would you change the strategy? It worked already. What is your argument? Let's try something different and see if it works. Biden got the most presidents ever, or most votes ever for president.
I mean, I think
Sure.
there's
Trust
you
the
go
plan.
First. You go first, SEL. Oh, okay, well then I'll say
Trust the
that-
plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think a fundamental difference between the people on my side and the people on that side is that, like, you guys are, like, clearly only looking at this in a partisan matter, and I don't blame you for that, right? Like, I get the idea of winning, right? Fair enough. I'm personally, and I can't speak for everyone else here, but I'm personally looking at it in a bigger, lowercase d Democratic fashion, right? I'm looking at it as a way to strengthen parties by like having this infighting, which is necessary. If you just pretend that we have a united front, which we clearly do not, then sorry.
It's okay. I just want to try to break the loop a little bit with another question. Maybe we can kind of move on to something else. We might. Well, honestly, this is a black hole. We'll probably get back to it and we'll probably start looping again, but that's fine. So given that Biden's approval ratings are what they are, even considering his legislative accomplishments, why is that the case? Why do you think that his numbers are? Why is he polling so low right now, despite all these
I'll tell you.
pointing to all these legislative accomplishments? Please, Ira, go ahead. And then
It's because inflation is still high. He's still cleaning up the mess that Trump created. There's still a lot of problems out there, and most Americans are not creative enough to understand how the House, the Senate, Congress works. And so they're going to say, I got problems. It's the president's fault. So a lot of people are blaming Biden. And I understand that. I accept that. I don't actually argue it. I kind of joke a little about, well, polls, who cares? But I honestly think most people are just kind of unhappy, but things are getting better. Gas prices have come down. It hasn't led to World War III, as Destiny pointed out. Inflation is coming down. Trump is looking crazier and crazier every day with these indictments, and Biden's looking better and better. So I think as the election gets closer, as Biden starts spending money on his re-election campaign, he hasn't even had one event for his re-election campaign. He's going to have his first one next week, I believe, in Pennsylvania. He hasn't even started running for re-election. As he puts his money into that and starts telling people why they should give him a second chance, I think those numbers start to go up.
I'm
Can I
glad
jump in really
that
fast and ask
Ira
Ira a question? Yeah, I want to ask you one super quick question. Yeah, Ira, you said Biden is looking better and better. Is there any kind of data you could use to support that?
Biden's
all
looking
the-
better and better compared
I
to
see he's getting a higher and
Republicans.
higher disapproval rating.
Well, again, the numbers right now are because people's feelings are down in the dumps
Well,
over
the trend line,
inflation and
to
such.
Sin's point, the trend line is downward, as I understand it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're giving an explanation as to why it's the case that Biden's looking worse and worse. I agree there are explanations why. It's not the case that he's like a bad president. But he's not looking better and better. It's looking worse and worse.
I don't know. I'd have to see what you're looking at, but I feel like most people out there were thinking that Biden did pretty damn well on the big debt ceiling fight, for example, thinking, boy, this guy really took it to the Republicans, and McCarthy's looking like shit. So I don't know what stats you're looking at. You're looking
Any
at just some
aggregate
poll, like,
any aggregate polling data on Biden's approval.
well, of
Yeah.
course,
Like
like I
poll
said, it's
538.
17 months from the election. Go ahead, SDO.
Just pull up 538. You see the exact same thing. That I wouldn't even say that approval is trending down, but disapproval is trending up for him. So it's not clear, and I don't, this sucks.
Hold
but
on,
when you-
that's not true. I'm pretty sure disapproval is, at least in the Democratic Party, disapproval is trending down. Now,
Sure, but we're talking about the
disapproval might be
general,
trending
right?
up
This whole thing
overall.
is about
Sure.
electability.
Well, in the general, kind of, but Biden is not winning. None of our candidates are ever winning Republican votes, right? The Republicans are lockstep or have been trending in a certain direction for a long time in terms of their relentless partisanship, right? Disapproval among Republicans for Biden is past 90%. So,
Not
of course,
looking
it's overall.
for look. We're not looking for just among Republicans. We want to look at the aggregate because
Sure, but
that's
for
going to be what
Democrats-
shows us who's going to win in the general.
That's great. But for Democrats, I'm pretty sure for the past several months, the approval for Biden has been like either streamlined or a flatline or generally rising a little
Do
bit.
we
That's
have,
great, but that's not what
stop-
anybody's talking
let's-
about.
Do we have data?
let's
Stop.
move
Stop.
away
Because
from
I-
Sideways.
Stop. Because
Let's
if
move
you're
away
looking
from
at this now, I want to know. What about amongst moderates, independents, centrists, etc.? Those who aren't related to either of the major parties. Do we know?
I
the
don't know
trend
where
rate
I
among
don't. I
them?
haven't seen data on what moderates are polling at right now. But
Here's the
I
thing,
think that one of the big things that we're need to keep in mind is I think my guess I would venture something a little different. Than what I already said. I think that Americans the presidential approval rating, in my opinion, is like a snapshot of where every American feels like they're at in their life right now. And I think
Oh
there's
no!
like a,
Hold on. I'm gonna stop you because you lied about something, or maybe you're mistaken. You might not have lied, but no. Joe Biden's approval rating has gone down even among Democrats since May of 2021. It's gone down steadily.
Since
So I don't
May
know
of
what's-
2021, my
Yeah,
understanding is from December of 2022, the approval has generally risen a little bit. I'm looking at
Since
Reuters
the-
polling data.
Yeah, if you want to drop me some long-term polls that you're using, right? I can understand what you're talking about, but it's just the case that since Biden took office, he is less approved among Democrats now than he was, and among more
Since he
moderate
took
people, like
office,
people who
yes.
lean Democrats, it's now barely trending above water among people who lean Dem.
This is why I said recently and not since his election, right?
What do you take recently to be? How far ago can we go before it stops being recent?
The weekly data that I'm looking at right now is December 20th of 2022, and then monthly starting January of 2023. So over
Drop me
the past
just
6
drop the
months.
link in the side chat. And I'll check it out.
Sure thing, go for it. But anyway, so I think that there is a general anxiety among Americans, around a lot of things, especially concerning wages and jobs, and especially concerning the affordability of the cities that they live in. And these are two things that largely the president of the United States has zero control over. I think that as we get to the debates and Biden can make the case for it, well, look at all the stimulus I did, look at all the unemployment insurance we gave out, look at the child tax credit expansions, like these are the ways that I helped you. I think Americans will feel a little bit differently about it. But right now, I think that the presidential approval rating is more or less just a snapshot of how Americans are feeling about the country, and it's not too great right now.
Well, let me speak to that for a minute. So we're talking about Biden being able to make his case. One of the arguments that our side has consistently tried to make is that, hey, these are huge events that are going to get press coverage. They're a great way for Biden to reorient the conversation away from, hey, the president makes all of the bad things in my life happen, to, hey, here are these concrete policies that I want to enact that Republicans want to gut, right? That's a great way for that to happen. Just speaking on the polling for a minute, on the head-to-head polling, moving away from all the approval polling, in head-to-head polling, Trump is currently ahead by 2 points. DeSantis is currently ahead by 2 points. We are not comfortably ahead, just waiting for Biden to lap the other candidates. We are in a position where he needs to make his case. It's that simple.
Well,
On the primary.
Mhm.
He doesn't need to make the case against Republicans, arguing with other Democrats.
It's an easy way, if nothing else, if you didn't want to take any argument from this, right? Nothing about democratic legitimacy, nothing about participatory democracy, whatever. If the only argument is, hey, this is great ability for him to get free clout, and if you want, you could just say something like, hey, let's change the democratic debate rules so that only electeds can get in. Okay, then you don't get these crazies coming in, and you don't have to worry about them. You're only getting people who have serious attempts to try and win the presidency sometime in the future. You may even be setting up future presidential candidates by giving them this massive stage.
To rehash an old point, number one, he is the president of the United States. He doesn't need more clout. He has plenty of clout. He has
Okay,
plenty
but
of
apparently his message isn't getting out. That's y'all's argument.
Number
That
two,
wasn't the argument. But...
Number two, the second thing is I'm hearing a lot about reunifying the party, making the party go into an exciting new venture. I will just tell you, so I work as a teacher. A lot of the programs that we have, a lot of the funding that we have in the school that I work in, it depends on Democrats being able to pass legislation in our local district, right? I am not in favor of abandoning the pragmatically possible, real legislation that can impact my students, that can impact my community in pursuit of a perfect vision for what the party might be. And that is a danger that I think that it
That's
is
a
an
great straw
ideal.
man you just set up. That's fantastic. It's
You gotta let her
beautiful.
finish, though.
Number
You gotta let
three,
her finish. Finish. Go ahead, Fairy Queen. You have the floor.
Number three, I notice we're talking a lot about polling data. I will not comment on the polling data, though I tend to agree with Destiny when he mentions that it's generally a snapshot about how Americans are feeling at a particular moment in time. But what I will say is one of the ways that I tried to frame whether or not I thought Biden might have a chance at winning the election is based off of a book that's called by Alan Lichtman. He's a historian, and it's called It's called The Keys to the White House. So there are 13 different markers that he's used from I think every incumbent versus a challenge, not a challenger, but for every incumbent presidential election since I think about 1984. And there are 13 different keys. And in order for him to lose the incumbent election, you have to have at least 6 of those keys have to be false. According to Lichtman and according to what I was able to rustle up last minute, it seems as though right now only 4 of those keys might possibly be false. And the theory, what it's based off of, according to Lichtman, is that although many voters historically, although they can be swayed by polling data, they can be swayed by charisma, oftentimes they really care more about whether or not presidential candidates have carried through on their promises while they were in the White House. And historically speaking, if they don't do that when they are in office, then typically those are the conditions that are necessary for them to lose. It's the reason why Donald Trump lost in the 2016 election. Alan Lichtman, he successfully predicted that. And he successfully, again, I think 1984, but I could be wrong about the dates, since then. So I do not think that the legislative wins and successes that Biden has up until this point are a moot point. In fact, I think it is the most important thing that we can discuss tonight.
Before you guys, I guess as Prime is going to respond to that, but before you do that, I want to ask Destiny a quick yes or no question. By the same standards you're using for saying Joe Biden is looking better and better, is it the case that Donald Trump is not looking worse and worse?
I don't think Donald Trump is looking anything right now because he's not as much in Americans' eyes. But once he gets wheeled out, like in the Republican debates, then we'll see how he looks to the Republicans.
So your answer to the question is Donald Trump is not looking worse and worse?
Well, on that point,
To be
though,
super clear.
wasn't there a big something happened recently, a big deal of his indictment and the indictment, I guess, being released. I haven't looked into it personally myself, but do we not think that's going to really change the race on the Republican side? I know this is
No,
aside from the
Republicans are
debate, but-
literal, actual, knuckle-dragging fucking retards. So no indictment or anything like that is going to make any difference whatsoever how they feel. The only way will tell us how, I guess, moderates or undecideds feel, or the less extreme people feel once, the debates start. But I don't think any of the news right now,
Wow.
because Trump is just not, front and center in front of everybody's face, except for when this indictment news comes out. I don't think people are going to develop strong feelings about it until, the actual races start.
Damn. And I call conservatives ignorant, and I get so much grief. And then Destiny says that, and he gets away with it.
Well, only in specific times, okay? I choose my moments carefully. But when it comes to Trump, Republicans legitimately are unhinged at the brain. Everything shuts down.
Well, they're
Fair enough.
flooded with misinformation. Here's the thing, too. Being president, you got to make some tough choices. And so Biden has to work with Republicans. It pisses off a lot of people. They don't understand how it works. You got to keep the economy alive. So when you hear the complaints about Biden, it's always he hasn't done anything about abortion. He hasn't done anything about voting rights. It's people have no idea how that stuff works. And so they just get mad at Biden. But being president, you got to put the big boy pants on. You can make some tough decisions. And Biden, like I said, has just begun to ask for re-election, hasn't even had one event yet. So give it time and forget debates, man. Put a couple polished commercials together with some light flares and Biden looking cool and eagles flying and jets and I'm President Biden and I'm here to kick ass or whatever. And he's going to win, man. He doesn't need to get on stage with 2 morons like Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. to debate whether vaccines cause autism. I'm sick of this crap.
I want to. IRI has a point. Do we think that debates matter at all in the modern American life?
Actually, I think they do. People have been saying here that they don't, and that they don't move polls. They do move polls. We saw that, for instance, in the Republican debate in 2016, I think, right? That people's performances in those different debates shot them up and down. And then that's literally how Trump got to the presidency is by like having great performance, by embarrassing all the rest of his opponents and then making it there himself. So like I think they clearly do have a level of effect, especially if the audience members, right, being the party, like feels that like it's salient to them, that like what that they have someone speaking to them, like the RNC wanted to pretend that its establishment base or its establishment views were unified, right? That they were representing everyone, but clearly they weren't. Trump managed to tap into that, and then he came out strong. And so, like, that's what I want. I want us to be able to test these ideas and see what really is popular.
Dude, Marianne Williamson and RFK are going to set you back in your progressive
Yeah, sure,
ideas,
but
bro.
you
It's
let
like
me
Jimmy
wor-
Dore with
you let
it's
me
like
worry
Jimmy
about
Dore
that.
with his March for Medicare for All.
Yeah,
it's a
that's-
nightmare. Trust me. You want to
it's-
open that
it's
door,
great.
you're going to regret it.
It's
the second
great.
it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, it's great. Once again, and I've stated this clearly. I'm trying to create, at least me personally, I'm trying to create the infrastructure to normalize this, to have it so that we have all kinds of candidates show up. So Marianne Williamson, I think I disagree with everyone here. I don't think she's correct. But Marianne Wilson wouldn't be the only one showing up there. If we actually welcome challengers,
wait,
then we would
real
have
quick,
more
Prime.
challenges.
Prime, what do you like about Marianne Williamson? What makes you want to vote for her?
I like her.
Uh-oh.
Well,
On the spot.
no, I didn't say that like I wouldn't necessarily vote for Marianne Williamson, right? I'm saying that I don't think that she's a crank. That's all I
What
say.
do you admire about her?
I like her positions on Medicare. I like her positions on. I mean, I don't know. Like I just have a general
You don't know. You
appreciation
just
for her.
she's cool.
That's
Do you
it.
like the cut of her jib?
I do actually.
She
I really
wants
do.
Medicare for all and a healing crystal in every home. What more can you want?
Like, what more can you want? Like, I don't know. Like,
I want to hear from the rest of the people though. And even from Destiny and Fair Queen, because IRI has made the statement like that Destiny I'm sorry, not Destiny doesn't matter, but debates don't matter, right? Do debates still matter, STL? What about you, Sim? Do debates still matter?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. They obviously do, in part for normalizing policy. I would argue they don't have big effects on the way people ultimately vote. People ultimately vote on where they align ideologically and who persuaded them. When you look at between elections, which way voters swing, it's not really about getting the base out. It's about persuasion. Trump persuaded voters because he came off as centrist. People don't realize this, but he was polled as the centrist candidate. So like that's part of how you win is persuading voters. Giving your candidate more airtime is one way to persuade people towards your side. But in terms of like their long-term impact, I think debates help set the stage for what policies are considered. Bernie mainstreamed Medicare for all, mainstreamed the Green New Deal, mainstreamed $15 minimum wage in part through his debate performances. And I think generally that's probably a good thing for society. Insofar as debates are able to some degree to choose between policies that are good and bad, between policies that are popular and not, it's probably a pro-democracy, like slightly better policy in the long run to have more debates. Yeah.
What about you, Destiny? Debates, good?
I
Bad,
mean,
neutral?
nah. I think that like debates are fun, but I don't know if they move the needle much on things. I like debates. I'm a debater; it's my job. I like the idea of like general debates, or whatever. But you have to be aware of like the political calculus while it's happening. I mean, like what we talked about, all those wonderful things. Bernie, the Green New Deal, 15 an hour, single payer healthcare. All of those ideas are dead now. Nobody's taking them seriously in society. They're dead on arrival in the
Yeah,
Senate.
like Florida. Florida doesn't take the $15 minimum wage seriously, right?
What I mean, states might be doing it, but do you think that the state of Florida was persuaded by Bernie Sanders? Or do you think it
I
more
think
has to
that
like the
part of the
cost living
movement,
in
yeah,
every
was.
single major city in Florida that has increased because every single person around the country is migrating to Florida to get away from like COVID policies and other shit that they found on here, right? That's probably more why wages are trending a bit up. Also, I don't even know if all of Florida has 15-hour minimum wage. Isn't it just like the city limits of Miami or whatever? I don't think it's the entire state, is it?
That vote was in 2016.
Okay, sure. It might be. I mean, different states have higher minimum wages, but I don't think Bernie Sanders gets the sole credit for normalizing that conversation.
Sole credit. He's held like part of the point of all this is we're talking about like you can call it the Overton window, whatever policies that can rise up to national. There's a reason we know what UBI is, okay, and it's because of Andrew fucking Yang. He put it on everyone's lips, everyone's mind. People are aware of this shit in a way they weren't, and now all over the country, cities are doing UBI experiments in a way they weren't before. That shit can help move the needle. It provides the experimentation necessary for democracies to choose between policies. So, like, yeah. It does matter.
It can, but at the end of the day, Like the ACA came from an elected leader negotiating with Congress to get shit done. Like the American Recovery Plan, the expansion of the child tax credit came from an elected leader like negotiating with Congress to like get shit done. Like there's a time and a place for activism. I just don't think it belongs on like the presidential stage where it could potentially hurt like a future election where policies actually matter and not just where we're trying to get more people to think about them.
But it can always hurt a future election. Every primary election, the House, the Senate, the president, whatever, every primary is a chance to bring up dirt on the candidate, right? AOC, I'm sure, did not like benefit the image of Joe Crowley, but I think Congress is probably better for having her in it. Like,
yeah, but like look at how AOC has changed her leadership style since getting in, right? Like initially she was the rambunctious shit on everybody from the left, do it consistently and constantly and over and over and over again. And now she doesn't. She's grown as like a statesman, and now she has a better relationship with everybody in Congress, and she realizes it's probably a more effective way to get her agenda passed than just constantly attacking her own party, which seems to be what progressives are obsessed with, which is another whole point of this like doing more primary debates or whatever. It's going to be a way to attack Joe Biden. That's the only reason they want to do it.
Sure.
there's some truth to this.
You're,
But,
Just
oh,
real
go
quick.
ahead, SCL.
Well, go ahead,
sorry.
Wick.
Oh,
is
sorry,
what you
sorry.
mean.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Wick. Is
Apologies,
what you mean.
apologies.
Okay. No, but I keep hearing, well, from Destiny's side of things, I keep hearing, well, we don't want to have a debate because there's a chance for these candidates to have good moments to attack Biden. Why do they need a debate to attack Biden? Like, what about the debate format makes those attacks more effective? Then they couldn't just buy airtime or come at like on Twitter
Because
and
they're not
things
going to
like
get
that.
airtime because these are no names. The only way they can do it is by leeching off of Biden's clout, essentially. It's literally like a YouTube tier argument, right? Like if somebody wants to do a hit piece on me, like nobody's going to hear about it. But if I start watching it and give airtime to it, then of course people are going to hear about it. It's the same thing with Biden. Like, oh, like I want to share a stage with the president of the United States while I shit on him. Well, everybody that knows the president is not going to know like your opinions on him, even if otherwise they wouldn't have given a fuck or known anything about it.
It's,
and this
it's just
isn't
a proxy
sorry,
war.
you go first.
It's just a proxy war between the progressives and the establishment. Look, before this, it was why did they move the schedule? They moved it to South Carolina so Biden would have an advantage to go first. They just gave it to him. It's just one. If just keep moving, they just keep moving around. It's just one way
So,
to fight.
When it
Let me
comes-
guess, Prime. You were out there advocating for. You were mad that they moved it to South Carolina.
No,
Let
no,
me
hold
guess.
on. I wanted to address that really quickly, right? It's a tangent, but I'll address that. I have been, and I've done this many times on my show. I've advocated for rearranging the schedule. However, not specifically for South Carolina. Now, it has nothing to do with Biden. It's because South Carolina is a fucking Republican state. Why would we like what we
it's in
should
the
care
South.
about?
We just
what-
won Georgia. Why not?
Hold on. What we should be concentrating on are swing states, right? Swing states, especially ones that lean blue. Those should be the ones that top the schedule, right? So I like that Biden rearranged things. I
Would you
don't like the
consider
fact that South
Georgia a
Carolina was
swing
number one.
state in
But
2020, Prime.
I'm sorry.
Would you have considered Georgia a swing state in 2020?
No, I
Do you think
still.
it's good that we maybe did some stuff there, perhaps?
Actually no. I think that I think it's fine for us to put resources into Georgia. But I don't think that I think it's looks people calling it a swing state, I think it's a bit overblown.
Look,
But it's fine. They
my
can put
whole-
resources there. My only point is that, like, for this specific thing, I think you can rearrange the schedule. I think that would actually be a really good thing for the party. But anyway, I just wanted to say about to Destiny. Of course, he's wrong. 65% of people support a $15 minimum wage increase, including 90% of Democrats and 41% of Republicans. This is the University of Maryland study that was done, and this was published April 21st, 2023. So, like, but there's this idea, this like false idea that we are united, right? That well, if whatever Biden's doing must be what the establishment likes, certainly, but it also must be for the best interest of the public, and everyone is behind him. That is not the case. Right? That he did. I feel that he did not fight for $15 minimum wage. That he let the barest of legislative obstacles stop him. Where he doesn't seem to do that for anything else that he actually does support. But it's a side tangent.
Also, as another side tangent, Florida voted on that minimum wage increase in 2020, and it won't go into effect until
Yeah.
2026.
It's an amendment. Look, you call me a bot. You're the one who's doing all the progressive talking points, bitching about South Carolina, the DNC moving the map. You're bitching now about the debates. What's it going to be next? You call
I
me
literally
a bot.
hold on. You didn't hear anything, right? Your
I heard your
ears
argument,
are stuffed
but you
with
just you
Biden.
didn't care about any of this
Your
stuff
ears are
before,
stuffed
I
with Biden
guarantee.
semen because I literally said that I support the change, right? I just don't want South Carolina to be on top. That's it, right? The change itself, I'm glad that Biden did that, and we should be pushing this, and we should break the hold that Iowa and New Hampshire have. Absolutely.
I want to give Fairy Queen a chance to answer the debate question. Then we go back to some other questions. So Fairy Queen, does debate move the needle? Are you pro, anti-debate, neutral to debate? What do you think?
I truly don't have enough research on hand
Sure.
to say how much like debate impacts presidential elections. The closest example I can think of is John F. Kennedy versus President Nixon. If I recall correctly from that story, and again, someone can check me on it, I do think that him being on a televised presidential election, I do think that that did have an impact on his performance, if I recall correctly. Again, somebody can check me on it, but that's my understanding of it. But generally speaking, as I stated before, from what I've seen, like based off of the book that I mentioned, The Keys to the White House, the biggest reason like why incumbents win and why they maintain power, it's because they deliver on their promises that they make, like when they gain office. It has less to do with polling data. It has less to do with popularity. It has less to do with like slamming dunk points on the stage, and much more to do with like their consistent record as candidates, as presidents when they're in office.
You know what's funny is this Supreme Court ruling that happened this week of throwing out Alabama's maps. That was a huge injection boost for democracy. A lot of people will be happy with Biden for that because people have no clue how it all works. They'll be like, "Oh, Biden actually delivered something for democracy and voting rights like he promised." Watch, guaranteed.
Okay.
They'll be happier with him.
I want to use this lull to read a few more super chats, and then we'll get back into it for the last third of this. $2 from AG Silver. He's wicking out. Hell yeah, I am. Jesse Irwin, $2 Canadian. Sorry. Can everyone on the panel say Obama? You don't have to do that. Stupid. Ryan B for $10. For Prime and hypothetical where we primary Biden, he loses, and then the new candidate loses to DeSantis. Do you think GOP will primary him in 4 years, or will likely hold the advantage? $10 from Kyborn. Don't more people need to give you money for this entertaining panel? Yes, they do. $5 from Alma Dalma, trying to fracture the DM party against an increasingly proto-fascist GOP in the name of democracy is wild. $20 from Lex Friedman. Great job hosting these debates, Wick. It's a great format. I learn a lot when I tune in. Thank you. $10 from Josh R to say, can you ask Synth why he brought up Ford when the Fairy Queen literally said the DNC and Ford was a Republican? Also, does he know how Ford became president? Because he surely wasn't elected. $10 from Federer Methodist.
Ford lost. Yeah, I'll answer the question. Ford lost.
I got two more, and then you can answer.
Oh my God.
$10 from Federer Methodist. Can we see a show of hands why everyone on the screen, including WikiDoodle, that is a registered Dem, and a show of hands of those who do not identify as Dem but want to weigh in on what the party does? And $2 from Ranger and Rogue. IRI. What is Biden is still fixing from Trump? Okay. But I am a registered Democrat. I don't know who else is. You can say.
Me too.
Same.
I am.
Yep.
I think everyone here
Biden's
except for
strongest
maybe FDR.
soldier.
Yeah, right. We found him.
Can I answer the dumb question?
You can answer the
Yeah,
question.
thank you. So the reason is because the claim was no incumbent president has ever participated in primary debates. I completely agree that it's not the case that Ford is a Democrat. I didn't say Ford was. But hopefully that answers your question, commenters.
Well,
I would bring up
no,
Ford.
the comment was that Ford was not he wasn't strictly. He was the only reason he was the incumbent was because of Nixon.
Yes, he was the incumbent. Yes. That
Yeah,
was the reason why he was the
why
incumbent. I
was
agree
he-
he was the incumbent for a reason.
I
Yeah,
understand, but
the commenter. I don't know why the commenter's even asking. Why did I mention an
commenter
incumbent
isn't
president?
asking. He's
Well,
informing.
because it's kind of it would be
Yeah.
like saying that like you inherit your hair color from your parents, and you're like, no, that's not true. And it's like, what do you mean? Of course it's true. It's like, no. What about step parents? It's like, okay.
No, I think the point of the
obviously
step
we're
parents
talking
is
about
social
elected
fiction.
leader.
Wait,
We're
the step
talking
parents
about
and social fiction is totally different. So in the case of an elected leader, it's not the case that you're an incumbent just because you're elected. When you're a step parent, we're saying you're a parent in some kind of like fictional sense, so you're used to the word. It's like totally different, totally disanalogous.
No, that's exactly when people are talking about incumbency. They're talking about a person that was elected by their party
If
that
I
has the
said
support of their party.
no person on the planet has a different hair color than their parents, wouldn't it be fine to bring up one counterexample?
I think that this is actually an empirical
Gotcha.
question about whether appointed incumbents have an advantage. I don't know what the answer is, but it's very clearly one way or the other. So I don't.
I would assume that an appointed incumbent would still have the advantage, but yeah, it's difficult to have the empirics offhand.
Yeah, I think there.
Well, how many
part
times
of the
has this happened in U.S.
advantage-
history, right?
For presidents, it's rare, but for like House and Senate, it's not.
Yeah,
true.
yeah, and I'd
Yeah, but I don't
imagine.
even know how much of an incumbency advantage is there for like House and Senate seats compared to the presidency, right? I don't know what the numbers are on that.
I would imagine there's an advantage. There's less of an advantage because they haven't built like the campaign infrastructure. Like if you're just like appointed at that point, like you don't have that machine behind you ready to go. So I would imagine it would hurt you. But anyway, I wanted to answer that question that someone asked me for money for Rick. Good work on that one. Do I think that if we primaried Biden and Biden lost and then the challenger lost, would the Republicans do so to their candidate next time around? No, I actually don't think that at all. But that's because we don't have it normalized. This should be the case. I'm arguing for a world that should be true. That would be better if we had that world where both parties, or all parties, including third parties, would do this.
Correct. Would you still argue for a short-term loss if you knew doing this would give Trump or DeSantis the presidency? Would you still advocate for it if you knew?
On principle, yes.
Okay.
Jesus.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Destiny. I don't know. I get it. You got literally no principles. No, you get look at him, right? Literally no principles.
I don't know what about United States of America after 4 more years of Trump. So it's just funny that
yes.
that's like the sacrifice.
This is such a poor argument. No, I'm sorry. No, this
I
actually
didn't agree
matters.
with Prime, but that's wild.
Yeah,
How
no,
is
but
it
this.
wild? Trump literally tried to destroy the country in like 7 different fucking ways. What do you mean? That's wild.
But this is
after 4 years of Trump. After 4 years of Trump being, go ahead, Prime. You're gonna say something probably the same thing.
Well, no. Okay, well, just the point that I think this is such a weak argument for us to make as a party. I want Democrats to win, right? Like I think it's better when Democrats win. I think less people suffer in the world when Democrats win. But the argument that we present to our voters is just that we're less terrible than the other side. That's it. That's what we're presenting. That's the biggest example. Like, hey, we aren't as bad, and people don't care. They don't see the threat, which the threat is real. I admit it is. Or it just doesn't matter to them. It's not salient to them.
I want to ask the rest.
Can I say one more thing really fast? Because I thought Prime was going to say
Really
the same thing I was
fast.
and didn't.
Really
Super
fast.
quick, and then you can jump back in. But in terms of like what people are saying like before the first Trump presidency back in like 2016ish, people are saying if Trump takes office, it'll be the end of America. I think Trump is really detrimental, but the idea that he's going to snap the Thanos glove and like remove America from existence is ridiculous. It's way over
He
the top.
literally tried to do that like 3 different times. He
What
tried
are
to
you
snap.
talking-
He tried to snap with Pence to overturn the election.
he
He tried
ever
to snap
successful?
with Georgia. He tried
Was
to
he
snap with
ever
Georgia to turn
successful?
election.
Was he
He
ever
wasn't
successful?
but he tried.
Because we
It's
have a
like-
really, really robust democracy in the U.S.
The robust
gonna wither
never
away
been
because of
tested
one
that much.
nutcase.
But it's like the equivalent of saying like my ex is gonna kill
It's
me.
never been
if I'm
tested that
married.
much?
And then
What?
my ex-
Let-
We had a
let-
civil
let-
war.
You gotta let Destiny
Yeah,
finish
the
his
Civil
point.
War
Destiny,
was the
finish his point.
destruction of the United States. We
It
literally
was not a
had-
successful destruction. That was the most tested the U.S. has ever been. It's something close to what Trump was able to do, and it wasn't able to destroy the U.S. The
Civil
U.S.
War
still
was
exists
The
afterwards.
Civil War was a test, and we failed. There was a secession of
We
states. We broke into
failed?
two countries.
We are
Okay,
one
never mind,
country
never mind,
again.
okay,
We
okay.
succeeded. We managed to move back from the. We managed to move back from the harm's cause.
I'm on Steven's side here. I don't understand like we can understand the threat that Trump has posed, and like he literally tried to end democracy. Like the fact that he didn't
and
succeed.
he's not capable of it.
What, hon? Because okay, so you don't believe in try again until you succeed, right? Like that's not a thing. That a person that he can't like undermine democracy to the point that it is able to fall, right? Institutions are only as strong as the people that are in them, and Trump was putting in people who would do as he pleases, right?
Saying that there is some possible chance, and if he does it enough times, eventually he might succeed. Like if he was able to have like 100 like Trump terms or something, I totally agree.
Or
It's
just
possible,
more.
but it's not the case that we can say with it that it's up in the air as to whether or not it would happen with 4 more years.
I'm not saying it's definite, like 100% by the end of another term
your
for
percentage?
Trump. That would be the case, right? I'm just saying that.
What's your percentage? 4 more years. What's your percentage?
I would be pulling it out of my ass from deep inside of my
guess.
bowels. I
I
don't.
say 20%.
20%.
Okay.
You don't. Jesus, that's insane. You think there's like a 1 in 5 chance of.
And where do you think that came from? It came out of his ass because it doesn't fucking matter, right?
It's
Like
an
there's
insane
obviously no way
number.
we can have any give you a number of any value here. I'm just saying
You can
that
have
certainly
a rough
it's.
estimate. Like it's not
I can
crazy.
say that certainly the chances are higher than if it was Biden, right? I can
I
say
agree.
it's certainly okay, or a generic candidate, a generic Republican
Okay.
candidate. Okay.
I agree. It's just it's not the case that we can say it's up in the air or there's like a 1 in 5 chance of it happening.
You asked us to give you a percentage.
I
We
know.
gave you a
I'm asking you
percentage.
so I know what I'm disagreeing with. I'm not asking you for the sake of like
We're
being
not
like
going to do
working
math
for
on this
specific
panel.
empirical.
I am anti-math on this panel?
Show
Okay,
me with base
we
theorem.
can move past this point. We can all recognize that whether or not Trump can succeed, he'd at least attempt it, right? He'd at least try.
Yeah, sure.
Right. I think we can all recognize that even the attempt, right, even normalizing the attempt is probably not good for the long-term health. Even though it might not set aside our democracy in the next 4 years, it would plant the seeds that might, right, lead to problems down
I mean,
the
I
road.
think we've already moved past plenty of the seats. He's been impeached more than any other president. He's been indicted more than any other president. He's going to be convicted more than any other president. Like, I mean, I don't know how much else you need. Like, he hasn't done it yet. Like, he's probably called for his vice president to flip the vote more than any other vice president.
Usually when somebody has like a theory that that somebody coming into office is going to destroy the U.S. and then the prediction is proven wrong, they lower their credence in the view. Usually they lower their credence in the view. They don't raise the credence in the view.
Okay.
No,
That wasn't hard to understand. Why are you confused?
Because
Why that was even remotely confusing?
Because what you just said didn't make any sense. That'd be like saying, I
Which
think
word did you not understand?
I'm sorry. Let me know when I can finish without you interjecting with some absolutely retarded shit.
what was your target?
Okay, you okay,
Okay,
stop,
ahead, go ahead.
both of you stop. Destiny will finish his point, and then Synth, then you can respond.
Okay, so Synth's argument is if somebody fails to do something, how can you up the probability that they're going to be successful doing it next time? If I say, I think my ex is going to come over here and murder me, and somebody's like, wow, what's the chance of that? I don't know, maybe 1 in 5. If he comes over to my house, takes 7 shots, and misses every time, and then he's like, I'm going to come back and kill you next time, my percentage of dying is going to be from 20% to 50%. I'm going to increase it because he actually fucking tried it. The idea that just because somebody tries and fails means you're all of a sudden going to lower your Bayesian estimation of the chance of being successful next time doesn't make any sense.
Now I understand why Destiny's just confused about what I just said. So I'm not saying that it's the case that there's no other evidence that could come about. I'm saying that if it's the case that all else equal, what you know is this person failed to do the destruction of democracy that we had every reason to believe beforehand. It's the case that we have more reason to believe they failed if they did a second time. It's not the case there's no other evidence like them shooting at you or Trump had like beheaded a bunch of Supreme Court judges that we'd have no other reason to raise the probability. It's just the fact of the matter that Trump failed lowers the probability.
We didn't know he was going to... No, I don't care how far left you are. Nobody who was being honest knew that Trump was going to try to destroy democracy. Nobody knew that until he tried it. Nobody knew that shit like Georgia would happen. Nobody knew that shit like with Pence would happen. Nobody knew that going into it. So the fact that he even tried it is amazing and astounding. Nobody knew he'd be catching
Nobody knew it, but they had reason to believe it. They had reason they thought that would happen. There are plenty of people who had reason to believe that Trump would come in and just try to destroy democracy. They're not psychics. It's not like the progressives are psychics or something. They had reason to believe that Trump was going to be anti-democratic. He came in and he was anti-democratic and he was not successful at removing democracy or destroying America.
You can say that they had reason to believe it, but if you want to play the Bayesian game, your priors on that are very, 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 very low because your reason to believe it is going to be an ahistoric event that like no president, at least in the last 200 years of U.S. history, has ever tried. So you might have believed he was going to do it, but the chances of doing it were probably like 1 or 2%.
Do you think your priors are just defined by like what everyone else is doing? You don't think there's anything else that updates priors?
That's literally what a prior is.
No, it isn't. What are you talking about? What?
Okay, never mind.
No, you're dead wrong. Your priors can be updated not just by virtue of the fact that you have something like the general statistical trend, but you can also have updates from the rhetoric of the person.
Probabilities, I think, enough, right, to understand, right? Bayesian probability. If you have that on your bingo card for tonight, check that off. Right, rare win, but you got it tonight. I want to talk about a little bit as we're kind of closing out here. Which would you rather face in the general election, Trump or DeSantis, and why?
Easy, Trump, 100%, dude.
Why?
This guy drags the whole ticket down. He's nuts. He's got tons of baggage. Probably going to be convicted, just appealing. Probably headed to prison. I think he's a nightmare for the GOP. And that's why if it's close between DeSantis and Trump in the primary, I'm phone banking for Trump. We got to get him across the finish line. That's how good he is.
You would actually go, like, would you donate to Trump's campaign to get him over that line?
I don't know if I would donate. I would knock doors and I would make phone calls because that's not like permanent, but I would definitely want Trump across the finish line because it's a layup for Biden. Trust me, people will come out. All those pink pussy hat wearing people, #resistance, they're all coming out. But for DeSantis, they're like, I don't know. Plus, DeSantis is young, so the age question becomes a bigger thing for Biden if it's versus DeSantis.
Okay. Farrakhan, what do you think? Trump or Biden? What's your point?
I would echo everything that IRI said with the addendum being that, as I stated before previously, what the Democratic Party has going for it right now is that it looks like distinctly more sane and more moderate than the Republican Party right now. There's a quote, like, again, I keep going back to Jimmy Carter's primary challenger against like Kennedy. But one of the quotes, like that he was, I don't remember if he said it or if it was someone else. It was something to the effect of, we need moral leadership in this country. One of the things that Jimmy Carter, a similarity between Jimmy Carter and between Biden, is the fact that both of them cared not just about promoting progressive policies, not just about like trying to recoup the nation, but battling for the soul of the nation, right? They stand, and like the wholesome like image of Joe Biden is as distinct and different from the catastrophe of Donald Trump as can possibly be. And so I therefore would want Donald Trump to be the nominee for the Republican Party, if for no other reason than it just highlights the distinct difference between the Democrats and between the values of the Republican Party currently as it stands, and why the United States needs to vote Democrat in the upcoming election.
Destiny, Trump or Biden? Or I'm sorry, Trump or DeSantis?
Trump 100%. We've already beat him once. We could beat him again, and he's got so much more baggage next time. And I think he runs into like the standard populist problem of, listen, I'm going to get elected and change everything. He got elected. He changed nothing. His record is horrible. He's got more baggage than he did before. He's too dumb to even make a Twitter account again. Like, he's a hopeless loser. I don't think he can win a second time if he lost the first time.
Rumkai, what do you think?
I don't have anything satisfactory to say here. I'm gonna pretend to be Wick. I think both sides have really good points. I think that Trump, everything you guys said about Trump is certainly true. I think DeSantis is a piss poor candidate. I think that this will be you'll see this in the coming months. I think that he is a Jeb 2.0. Jeb Bush, exclamation point 2.0. I don't think he has any of the personality. I don't think that he can galvanize his base in the way that Trump can. But I could see myself being wrong on both ends here. So, sorry.
SDL, what do you think?
I mean, I think Meatball Ron is an incredibly uncharismatic candidate, but the main concern to me would be that he has less baggage than Trump, and if he gets into office, he's probably more competent at governing. So I think it's sort of like a maybe slightly. I don't actually know who's less electable, because one is like a wet rag, and the other is like a populist who's at least kind of fun, but is also fucking insane and has a billion pieces of baggage against him. So I don't know which is worse. But when he gets in power, it's really hard to do worse than Trump. Trump had something like less than half of the positions in his administration staffed for most of his time there. DeSantis, if he gets in, would do some theocratic nonsense. He would be way worse for democracy in America, I think.
Okay, Sid.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with what Eskel just said there. If somebody hopped in this panel and was like, there's a 1 in 5 chance of DeSantis destroying democracy, I don't think I'd have a good counter argument to that. I think it's just the case that, yeah, probably. Wait, hold on. Destiny, do you disagree?
Yeah, I don't think.
Then you should want DeSantis to win.
I don't want this. No, I want.
That wasn't the
Biden
question.
The question was, would you rather run against Trump or DeSantis?
I'm aware. You'd rather run it. Yeah, you'd rather run against Trump, despite the fact that he's a much higher chance of risking democracy.
Yeah, but I think he'll lose.
You don't think DeSantis would lose with the fact that he's like doing worse than Trump in his own party's primaries? They both lose.
They haven't started primarying each other yet, like for real. They haven't gotten into like an actual back and forth where every Republican.
What are your odds that DeSantis will win against Trump in the primaries?
I have no fucking idea. That party is
obviously
lost.
Obviously he's more likely to lose. Okay, 50-50, then you should say that both are just as likely to win because they're both just as politically viable.
No, politically viable in winning. You're so. Why are you laughing?
You're so confused.
Nothing you're saying. No, I'm not confused. Just nothing you're
so
saying makes
deeply
any sense.
confused.
You're like, oh well, if they've got a 50-50 chance of winning their primary, that means they've got an equal chance of winning the general election.
No, that's not what I'm just saying. I'm saying they're equally politically viable within their own party. They're both very successful candidates.
It's
actually, it's just genuinely insane that you think that DeSantis is a 50-50 shot, despite the fact that every single futures market disagrees with you.
Okay, then. I don't know what you want me to argue against
Look,
that.
if there's a 50-50 chance, if there's a 50-50 chance, you have the greatest investment opportunity of all time, take all of your money that you have and bet it on DeSantis because that's a great expected value.
What do the futures markets right now say? What are the odds?
Saying that it's a much higher chance to Trump than DeSantis by a factor of about 3.
By a factor of 3? Okay, throw $500 on there and I'll fucking match it, and then we can see in like 2 months after some more indictments come out where those markets are. Count my word right now if you're listening to me. If you put money on DeSantis,
not 2 months until the election. Not 2 months when it's done. When it's done.
Retard. The market's
You're so mad.
You can buy and sell your position any
You're so
time you want.
You can, but you just said there's a 50-50 chance at winning. Not a 50-50 chance at priors changing.
Elections before, and I've made 5 figures doing it. I did it with fucking Mo for the
You're
last
not. Well, the argument we're having is not. Is it the case they're going to change over time? Of course, they're going to change over time. The argument we're having is
Stop.
is it the
Right,
case of
okay.
you're going to win or not?
Stop or you will be stopped. Okay? Don't care about the futures market. Gonna be real with you. Do not care. Do not give a single shit about what the futures market says might or might not. My question was, what do you think? Right? Not what the futures market thinks.
I think Trump.
That said, we have had a robust discussion. We're not going to end it. We're gonna end the closed portion because I know some people have to go, right? I know people have other things to do, but we are going to open it up. But before we do that, I want to give closing statements to people. And if you want to stay, you'd be welcome to stay. And we're just going to open it up to open callers to call in and yell at us why we're wrong or why we're right. You can say if you like. If not, I understand. And we're going to start with Fairy Queen. Close us out.
Okay. I would remind everyone that no one expected Joe Biden to win the presidency in the 2020 election. Everyone thought that he was boring, he was cheesy, he spoke in cliches, progressive rolled their eyes when he said things like restore the soul of America. He didn't have Obama's charisma. He wasn't cool and woke. He wasn't nerd chic. He wasn't an Andrew Yang. And yet, the fact of the matter, being consistent, being stable, having a proven track record of over 50 years of experience in governance is the reason why he was chosen to lead this country. If we want to protect this country from Donald Trump regaining going back into office, we have a responsibility to protect the incumbency. And so I would encourage and I would remind everyone that there is a reason why Marianne Williamson and RFK are being invited daily on Fox News of all places to talk about why the DNC should host primary debates. It's because it's against the Democratic Party's interests. And so that's just the last thing that I'd like to say. And finally, I would like to do a plug for Wick. I'm a Wicker. I love his community. I love hanging out in his Discord. I love debating people in his private VC. You should definitely come and join me and join everybody else to hang out there. It's really, really fun. Also, since it's the closing, you can find me at the Pink Pill Podcast. My goal is to create anti-red pill content. My hope is to start creating anti-red pill video essays. And I'd really need the support. I have 2 debate panels that I've done up there so far. Check them out and let me know what you think. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Give her a follow, gang. If you want to throw your link in my YouTube chat, feel free. Yeah, give her a sub and a like and all that. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. IRI.
All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun. It's great to see Synth and SDL. Nice to see you. The Dark Brandon King. I will forever appreciate your contribution. And of course, Prime, my old friend. It's all love. Great to see you. I love fighting with you. Listen, I think it's noble that you guys are advocating for more democracy, and I think there's something to be said there about debates in general and getting more people involved. It's an entertaining way to talk politics, and it does get a lot of eyes. I just think the incumbent advantage right now is too big to toss. The stakes are too high. And if you really want to see democracy move forward, then I would say getting Joe Biden across the finish line and a bunch of Dems down ballot is the way to go, because I think there's great stuff coming in the second term. Public option for Medicare, it would be a huge step towards Medicare for all. Affordable child care, expanding public education with universal pre-K, paid family leave. I think these are all things on the agenda for Joe Biden his second term. So, and for me, the evidence couldn't be clearer by the candidates that are actually trying to primary him. Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., who, as Ferry pointed out, are nonstop on Fox News and Newsmax. So, gee, I wonder who's helping fuel their campaigns. These people are chaos agents. They're just there to cause problems for Joe Biden and Democrats. And that's why Joe Biden's laughing them off. And honestly, I think they do more damage to progressive policies, which I support, by the way, believe it or not. Even though I'm a Biden bot, I still support progressive policies. I voted for Bernie in 2016 and 2020, but I'm a realist and I see opportunity on the table and we have to take it. So that's why I support Biden. That being said, I go by I'm really important. I stream on YouTube, on Twitch. I talk electoral politics. I'd love to have you come hang out if you guys out there want to come stop by. Thank you, Wick, for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence. An IRI panel is always a banger. Really appreciate you. Thank you again. Synth, please.
Sure. So, no, I really enjoyed the conversation. There were a couple of arguments that we went through. A lot of those got repeated a few times, but some of those were like the accusations of us being secret Biden haters. And I want to make sure that everyone in the audience knows that it's really important that we do get out there and vote for Biden when it comes time. He's an excellent president, in my opinion. I know that maybe Prime and I'm not sure about SDL if they agree with that, but I certainly do. And we mentioned the approval polls point a couple of times. Trump is looking worse and worse, and Biden is looking better and better. I think that I would get this view if the communities that I was in were wildly pro-Biden, because it actually does seem like the more radical, kind of center lefty types do actually think that Biden in particular is doing better and better and being more and more impressive. But the average person, not so much. The other side also sort of accused us of giving no arguments. But just to remind the audience of what those arguments in particular were, because I don't feel like many of them got responded to, we argued about the liberal values that it perpetuates, the optical advantages for Biden, the ability to get more airtime, talk about your values, the ability to show yourself as distinct from a guy who looks, sounds, and thinks like he's halfway through getting melted by the Ark of the Covenant, RFK. So I do think we gave some arguments there that I think were pretty powerful and hopefully compelling to at least some people. And to maybe just get the point across, imagine how weak Biden would look if he didn't come to the general election stages. That would obviously, it's not going to be the exact same, but it shows something true about Americans, which is that Americans want the president tested. They want to make sure that the president is actually fit. And I want to say one more time, I really do appreciate all of you guys being here and being willing to have your ideas challenged. I wish that Fairy Queen had gotten more time to talk because she did really have some really good input there. And I also appreciate that IRI was willing to step up at times for what probably felt like a 3v1. But I do appreciate all you guys. Thanks for the combo.
Okay, thank you. SDL, thanks for coming.
Of course. I think the case for having democratic primaries is fairly simple. One, it encourages participatory democracy. It's, part of a principled stance for believing that more debate, more internal engagement, more competition generally yields better policies, better country. I think that it should be true of all primaries, should be true of all positions. So that's just the principles of the matter. I think second, it's free airtime. It's free fucking real estate. Just take it. If it's only cranks on the stage, then Biden crushes them. If it's real contenders, they put progressive policy on the stage. They shift the agenda back to real policy that actually fucking matters and on which Dems are immeasurably better than Republicans. So I think there's very little loss to that. And third, just speaking on the Fox News bit, Marianne Williamson, so I'm not going to speak to RFK. He spoke to fucking Breitbart, okay? He's got no principles. He's anti-immigration. He's a nutter, okay? He's eco-fash. But Marianne Williamson, when she went on Fox News, she spent 10 seconds being like, I think we should have debates. And then the rest of it talking about how important it is to have a minimum wage, how important it is to have universal health care. She did the fucking progressive messaging you're supposed to do on conservative channels right. So even her crank ass can do it pretty well.
Well, thank you, and looking forward to having you on my stage again. You did very well. I'm very impressed. Prime Kai, please.
Yeah. So I think that democratic principles matter. It seems like the other side didn't really care about those things. But I think they do. I think the principles themselves matter. I think that there is never a good time to do something risky. Yeah, sure, whatever, right? But there's always a good time to try to improve future prospects and to make a better society, a more engaged society, right? So I'm in favor of things that do that. Even I can look past this very moment in time, and because I think that since we can't, overall, that since society generally doesn't do that, we fare worse. We don't put ourselves in position for success in the future. Instead, we can always say that there's an emergency now, and so power as it stands should never be challenged, and I have a problem with that. I appreciate the SDL and Synth for tag teaming with me. I think we did need their intellectual heft to challenge Fairy Queen because she made some great arguments out there. So thank you for that. And shout out to IRI, who I've said terrible things, right? I called him a Biden supporter. I said terrible things about him today. But I actually do love him. He's actually a fantastic individual. So shout out to him. Shout out to Steven, right? Shout out to the BLT that he was eating before. I love that he engages with people down here in the lower ranks. So shout out to him. And if you guys anyone out there enjoyed hearing from me, I'm streaming right now on youtube.com/PrimeKai, PrimeCayes, if you want to come find me. I also stream on Twitch, but I'll be doing more streams on YouTube. So I'll stick around here for a little bit if people want to ask me questions. So or challenge me or say I was an idiot, whatever you want to do. So now's your time if you like. Come on by. Thanks so much.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks for being here, Prime. If anyone hates me, they have Prime to blame. I was forged in Prime's chambers, right? And here I am. Destiny, please.
I just like the progressives who are the king of deplatforming. I feel like every single motherfucker in this Discord at one point in time has called for me to be permanently banned. I like that the only thing it takes them to become all of a sudden pro-debate and looking at debate as a cornerstone of democracy is the ability to challenge an established Democrat with a more progressive candidate. So I'm glad that that's all it took for them to find and discover their true love of defending debate as an important cornerstone of democracy. But as was said in the beginning, and I still feel, I think you need a really good reason to break from the norm of challenging an incumbent. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think there are strong candidates to do it. And I think at the end of the day, providing a united front against the insanity that is the Republican Party should be the priority of the Democratic establishment.
I never
that-
asked for you to be thrown off.
And with
but
that, thank you, all one and all. If you like this content, if you liked what I did, right? If you like me, gang, with my pretty face and my pretty lack of hair now, right? If you like that, like the channel, subscribe, right? Give me some money. I can't do this for free. I gotta get some dough here. So I appreciate all the super chats. I appreciate all you giving me. And like I said, we're gonna open this up right now, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you, Destiny, again for being here. I really appreciate you coming on my show and giving me your time.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Of course. We only have one caller, right? No one else wants to call in. What are you guys doing? Go to the Discord, accept the rules, jump backstage, and get on the show if you have some problems here. Let's bring in this one caller, see what he has to say. Hello.
Okay, I gotta head out. You have a good one, Wick.
Oh,
The new Walter.
Have a great
if you
evening,
have,
Sim.
if you got
You too, you guys have a
bounce,
good
you
one.
got to bounce.
The Walter Wick look is working great for you, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Caller, Origin, your time to shine, buddy.
I just wanted to say one thing, and that is if you think that voting matters, then you should actually think about what you're doing, because no matter what, the two-party system is going to fuck us all.
Wow.
Beautiful. Okay,
Beast.
I didn't kick him. He left. That was
Edgy.
great
Quite an
great argument, I guess.
I mean, I think there is some truth to the idea that without a real proportional representative system, it's really hard to get centrist parties, left parties, right parties. So people do actually feel constrained. Centrists get real fucking mad. They don't have good choices too. So do reactionaries, right? They're stuck with they love Trump, but they're stuck with him. They can't do any better or any worse.
I mean,
So I don't
do you guys agree with AOC's statement that if this was a parliamentary system, that the progressives would be in a completely different party? Like the Democratic Party is actually two different parties, at least, that are just happen to be stuck together for convenience sake.
I don't think the progressives would have any power without the Democrats, honestly.
Well, that's not what I asked, but whatever. Are
I'm
these
just
things?
saying that these far left policies and stuff, like the only reason they have any heft is because there are people within the DNC that will carry them across the finish line. I think that aside from some local areas, right, which they do succeed in, right, just nationally, it's just not a sell, right?
So basically, what you just said. So basically, what you said is that there is an alliance between two different parties, and because they have additional help from the centrist party, the center-right party, that they are able to push their ideas over the finish line. Yeah, like within a parliamentary system, you have to form alliances. Like the point was aren't these two different things?
Even without a parliamentary system, like what system would you not have to form alliances to get what you needed done? Even
That's
a
not what I
multi-party
said.
System, right?
But that's not what I said, right?
Then what are you saying?
I'm saying that
clear.
these,
it's possible
these-
that you guys have blown my brains out with all your noise today. It's possible, right? That's possible. But maybe be a little more clear for me. Help me out.
Ooh.
Sorry, what are you? Are you
I'm
oohing
waiting
us,
for you to
Steven?
explain your point.
Hold on, Steven, are you oohing us? Or are you oohing
Yeah, he just
whatever
low
you
broed
do?
you, dude.
Did he? No, he didn't do
Yes,
that.
he did.
He absolutely did not. Whatever. But anyway, so what I'm simply stating is that these are the ideological difference here are deep, right? Like the establishment proper.
Hold on. Sirnet, you're live. Stop talking until it's your turn. Cool.
Yikes,
Sure.
bro.
The establishment part of the Democrat Party, right, is like a center-right corporatist party, clearly, right? And the ideological differences between the progressives are deep. There is no a natural alliance here without the convenience of being within an established party. That's it.
Well, what I'm saying is that those progressives that you're talking about like they are a percentage point, right? They're like maybe 5% of the
Sure.
That's
So
not true.
back in 2021, Pew did this typology, this great typology, just asking people which, where they line up based on the questions they answer. And I think what they called the progressive left got like 8 to 9% of the population. And then there's another portion, which was one step to their left, which would probably be like Soc Dems. So altogether, maybe like 15 to 20% of the population is easily Soc Dems and socialists. So I don't know.
No, but that's not important, right? Like, so I hear you in terms of like the true believers, right? Like I'm a true believer, and I think it's correct that like we aren't a great portion of the population, but that's just not like how governing works. You don't have to be a great portion of the population. You just simply present policies that people find popular, right, and convince them on those. And on those policies, individual policies, that doesn't mean that a person can support without being a progressive themselves. We have plenty of policies that people love, right? $15 minimum wage, unlike what Stephen said previously, is extremely popular.
I want to give a chance and space to some of the new people here to have their say, right? Corpse Husband, what do you
Hey,
think?
what's up?
Questions for the panel?
Yeah. Wait, what?
Questions for the panel?
Yes. My question's actually for the people that are for the primary debates. What would you say is like your goal with this? Is it specifically to like find an actual challenger to Biden, to make Biden's position stronger, or like more progressive? What is the goal there?
I don't think any one of those is the goal. I think all of them composite are part of the argument for primaries in general for all elections. And they're also
Okay.
true in presidential elections. Yeah.
Okay.
Prime?
Just real quick, $10 from the audience. And yes, you can pay me money to ask you questions during this time too. Question for I'm really important. Can you take a moment to
Yep.
talk about how weak Biden's mental capacity is by how he ran circles around McCarthy on the debt deal?
Oh boy, I don't know if I could summarize this quickly, but basically he took the two biggest bargaining chips off the table for Republicans before the 2024 midterms, the debt ceiling and the budget. So what else can the Republicans do legislatively to cause problems for Biden? Those are the only two things that have to be taken care of so they could get concessions. Their legislative agenda is so toxic, they're not going to pass anything that's going to help them in 2024. That, in addition to all the things they wanted work requirements for Medicaid. They wanted the IRS agents rescinded. They wanted the climate change provisions rescinded. They wanted the student loan forgiveness gone. Biden knocked all that back. Yeah, he lost $20 billion possibly on the IRS agents, but $60 billion for the IRS is a hell of a lot of money and good. So, and then look at the proof is that more Democrats voted for it than Republicans. So obviously Democrats thought it was a better deal for them than the Republicans. And the fallout continues because the Republican House is on hold right now. It's being held hostage by the House Freedom Caucus because they're so pissed off about the deal that Kevin McCarthy made. They won't even let us a bill about preventing Biden from banning gas stoves, which isn't even happening, from getting to a full floor debate. So that's why I think they got their ass kicked on the debt ceiling deal.
Okay.
I was going to head out in a hot minute, but before I head out, I did want to highlight one recent policy area that Biden, I think, has really, really failed his promises. He recently finally ended the Title 42 policy and the Remain in Mexico policy, but replaced them with basically a very slightly more liberal version. If you come to the border of the United States nowadays, you will be presumed ineligible to apply for asylum. That was the crux of the Title 42 and Remain in Mexico policies of Trump, and Biden has now just formalized them. And I think that's a real embarrassment. That's one of the areas where, IRI was talking about how he has the big pants. He's making the tough decisions. He made the tough decision, and it was to fuck over immigrants because he thinks it's going to win him the midterms. So I just...
Well, he brought down people crossing the border in the South by 70%. A stat came out recently. These are people that had no other route here into America. They're subject to the cartels and paying them for their travel and all that. Now these people have a way to fly over here. He opened up the door for people to come here legally if they can prove they have a financial sponsor. Will some people fall through the cracks? Yeah, but a lot of people are taking advantage of the legal routes and flying on Road D on Delta Airlines now instead of paying smugglers and carrying their possessions in 2 plastic bags.
Look, I think there's a reason that the Trump administration made these exact same arguments, and that the ACLU is disagreeing with all of them. Like this is where the progressive reality is. This is going to fuck
Yeah,
over
and the
refugees.
ACLU stands up for Nazis too. So I mean, I don't know, man. Like the ACLU
is that really your
They stand up
best
for their free speech rights,
Is that
dog.
really your response? The ACLU stands up for Nazis, and like that's like literally like your best response here. I just want to, or maybe
I'm just saying,
I'll
you're
give you a
gonna
moment to do it
always
again. I'll give you a moment to do it again. Go ahead.
You're always going to find people that have an issue. Of course, the ACLU has a problem. There are people that are going to fall through the cracks at the southern border, people that have genuine asylum claims. But the real problem is not Biden. The real problem is Congress failing to update our immigration laws. We're using laws from the 90s when single males from Mexico were coming to work. We now have a refugee crisis at our southern border, and Congress is at a logjam. What is Biden supposed to do? He had to stop the flow of humanity. He had to stop people from getting taken advantage of by these cartels, and the border communities were demanding that he enact change, and he did.
I don't think Democrats have ever.
What do you want him to do? It's not a perfect world. Dad has to make tough decisions.
You want to know what
Dad
the
has to make
ACLU's
tough decisions. You don't get to eat Skittles for dinner. Sometimes you got to eat your vegetables.
Sure,
and
let's
the
talk about
president has
eating
to
the
make tough decisions.
Let's talk about eating the vegetables. It's called Alternatives to Detention, or ATD. It's what the ACLU supports. You let someone in, you give them a tracking device, namely a phone, that they need to report to, and they come back to court using that phone. 99% of people who get in these types of programs appear for their fucking court date. Why don't we just let people fucking in? They can apply for asylum. Why are we doing the exact same shit that the Trump administration did? This is not eating Skittles. This is a mass incarceration. There are 40,000 people locked up today because of this.
Listen, I can appreciate that, but that is sowing out because the American people are not convinced of that. I understand your stats back it up, but the American people were losing the messaging war. Biden had to stop the flow of humanity at the southern border by any means necessary, and he didn't want to do what Trump was doing, so he came up with some other ideas. What do you want from him?
Well, I have a
We have to
question
win
for SDL.
elections, SDL.
Yeah.
We have to win elections. I understand your heart is bleeding, and I bleed. My heart bleeds for these people too. We are lucky to have a flow of cheap labor and good people that want to come here. These are desperate people. I'd love to let them all in.
This is an
but we
interesting
gotta win elections.
question, real quick. Just real quick. This is an interesting question. I'm curious what SDL would say, because I've heard other people advocate for doing something, right, to stop DeSantis in Florida, right, for what they consider trans genocide, whether we want to consider that or not. I'm going to, table that for now. But considering there are really bad things happening, and as you say, what's happening at the border is a crisis, right? There's human rights violations going around at the border, or at least alleged human rights violations, let's say. But if you cannot get through the democratic process to get these policies in place, what would you have him do instead? Would you have him go around these democratic policies and do it by fiat, or what?
Unfortunately, that's been how immigration policy has been decided for the last 15 years. It is such a logjam. There is no alternative but presidential policy. That's why I'm highlighting it, because it's one of the areas where Congress has had so little impact on policymaking. It's all the president, and he's made some really bad fucking decisions. IRI is, basically saying, hey, fuck the immigrants, because we got to do it to win elections. And, if that's your calculus, fine. But that's not him living up to his progressive politics. That's him failing a promise and fucking over immigrants for an easy win.
Not a progressive. That's
not a progressive.
Sure, it's true. One of his specific promises was to stop the carnage, the incarceration on the border, right? He wanted to stop locking up kids. And
he's going to do that by opening up legal channels for people to come here, just like we did for the Ukrainians. We let 100,000 Ukrainians in and no one batted an eye. That's what Biden's doing now. He opened up a new channel for people to come in legally so they don't have to do the route through South America or Central America.
Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, I can't predict the future, but I can just tell you that human rights organizations are really fucking pissed that he kowtowed to the Trump administration's policy, but one step kinder. So yeah,
well, but in the long run, I think we do more good. So that's why I support it. But it's a privileged take for me. Of course, it's terrible, and then some people will suffer, and people will pay the price. But in the long run, I think we help more people.
Okay. Can we admit that his treatment?
I did. So I was going to head out. I have no hard feelings against IRI. I just do think this is an area where the Biden administration is really failing. This is probably one of the biggest human rights failures in U.S. history. Back in the 50s, we didn't do this. Back in under Eisenhower, we just let people across. They showed up to their court date, and it was fine. We can go back to that. Return to history, okay? Return to tradition.
I will not keep you, SDL. It's all love too. We can talk sometime, but I'm just saying we have a refugee crisis at our southern border. Venezuela has the third largest refugee crisis behind Ukraine and Syria in the world, and that's coming to our border. So these are unique times.
Okay. Well, thank you
I
for
wa-
being here, SCL. Right.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
I wasn't here for the whole conversation, but wasn't part of Biden's like border improvements that he got like Mexico and some other countries to agree to increase the number of refugees that they would accept as well? Isn't that the case, IRI?
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but he got like people have to show that they've tried to claim asylum in these other countries, and I'm sure he's worked out a deal with those countries too, like to take in more of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
remember the details.
yeah, because I think I think he has gotten stricter in terms of people that the United States will turn away at the border. But the offshoot is that nearby neighboring countries have increased the quota of refugees coming to the United States that they will accept while their asylum claims are being determined. So
I wanna give,
obviously wildly insufficient, but better than what it would be under the Trump
I
administration.
want to give space to Prussia here. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
have anything to say.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring it kind of back to the original topic in a way, because ultimately Stephen was right that like this isn't about whether you should have primaries or not. Is that like there's a portion of the Democratic Party, specifically progressives, more anti-establishment types, that like they feel like they're getting screwed 3 times in a row now, whether incorrectly or not. They feel like that, like, oh, Hillary rigged it, then Biden got together with Buttigieg and Klobuchar and rigged it for them, and now they're rigging it again by like not allowing debate. So the problem is if that narrative takes hold, which like now to the point where like breaking electoral norms, like these people might go with Cornel West with whatever the People's Party or what. Like, how do we prevent like this narrative from spinning out of control and like creating the situation where the people who are most to lose by Republicans winning cause Republicans to fucking win by depressing the vote to the Democrats? Like, do the people who are like anti, like sort of giving some sort of a boon or a fig leaf or I don't know, giving in some ground to this like portion of the party, which is substantial enough if that they don't show up, it might be some sort of trouble. Is there anything to do with that, or do we just like fuck it, you're just wrong, deal with it?
I can't imagine things are so bad that we would see progressives bleed off and peel off and go back Cornel West or anybody else. I mean, it's possible, but usually like Cornel West would have to have enough of a backing, I think, to be seen as like a tasty alternative to President Biden in the first place.
How
I think
much
that
do just real quick, pondering, how many or Josiah, how many do you think we could afford to lose to that? Even if it's only like 1%, that would be devastating, would it not?
I don't know if he'd be devastated. Well, so it depends. So like we cleared in terms of the popular vote 7 million the last time that when we ran against Trump, but where it gets difficult is
Yeah, but
in
we live
those
in an
battleground
electoral
states.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, the battleground states. I think Trump, if you look at Biden, I think if you look at the margin by which he won in 2020, it was like 40,000 votes in swing states. Like if they'd gone a different way, Trump would have won. So it depends on who we lose, right? Who we lose and where. So if people peel off in blue states like California or New York, probably won't make that much of a difference because their electoral votes are all,
Sure.
pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, but if we're talking Wisconsin, Michigan, or whatever, like 10,000, 20,000 votes, and that's it. Like, or anywhere, that's kind of the point, is to be that, because that's the issue at the core of it. It's like progressives feel like the establishment is not allowing them to have their voice, because ultimately what you want is to have Biden on the debate stage, and then for him to make some sort of like concession. Okay, let's do the $15 minimum wage this time for real, or do this or do that or whatever, or I'll allow more people at the border, or something akin to those lines. At the debate stage, really, what happens at the Democratic debates is that the establishment candidates give more ground to the left and stuff like that.
Sure.
I mean, it's possible. My gut check on this is especially everything that's going on with Trump, and as crazy as DeSantis is to the progressive left, I can't imagine that even now, as frustrated as they might be with certain aspects of Biden's presidency, I can't imagine that it would be so bad that given the stakes are even higher, because you imagine a situation where Trump's indicted in multiple ways, but if he runs and is elected president, he's already promised an agenda of vengeance. He says he's going to try to make Schedule F employees and fire the bureaucracy and do X, Y, and Z. So he would be unhinged, which means we have an even greater incentive to keep him out of power than we did in 2020, than we did in 2016. And DeSantis is like a more polished, but equally crazy version of Trump. And Biden, to IRI's, I think IRI has probably been making the case since this panel started. Biden actually has a number of relatively progressive legislative victories under his belt. So, I mean, I'm not saying what you're proposing is impossible. It just doesn't seem very likely to me that we're going to lose that many people to a third party. But I also, just as far as the broader topic is concerned, I think it's highly impractical for
Well, we
Biden
don't
to
have to.
entertain incumbent challenges anyway.
We don't have to lose them to put my thumb on the scale here, because I think all the most of the people on that side left. But we don't have to lose them to the third party. If we depress the vote, if we can, if people are convinced, enough people are convinced, well, maybe the Democrats aren't really that different from the Republicans. It's stupid. It's retarded. It's literally retarded. But if that,
I agree. Both sidesism
yeah,
is really
if
stupid. You know how I
that's
feel about
not
that.
both sidesism, right? Well, that is actually both sidesism, but that's not what I do. Okay.
That's exactly what you do, but okay.
What are you talking about?
Also, real quick, I gotta go. I love you guys. Be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Later, man.
But when it comes down to it, right? Like when you have enough people who aren't able to see, well, you're not even listening to us. We want these things, these progressive issues, and you're just telling us to wait. Now's not the time. Now's not the time. Don't you think a few of them are just gonna be like, why am I bothering voting at all? And
I
just
think a few of
say
them
no.
do every election. I think a few of them did in 2020. I think a few more of them did in 2016. I think some of that's inevitable. My vibe check, and I mean, I just, because of the stakes are even higher than it was in 2020, I just don't think that is a major concern. To me, what will depress the votes is if Democrats don't continue to tout their record. This is one thing that Democrats really struggle to do because we're so focused on what's next, what we didn't get done, like the $15 minimum wage, all these valid things. We never brag about the cool shit that we do despite enormous obstructionist pressure from the Republican Party. If we don't do that, if we don't give people a reason to get hyped in addition to an affirmative agenda for the next cycle, that will depress the vote.
Okay. I want to give some of the other people here a chance to have a question. Cyranet now?
Oh yeah, hi. So I think the general consensus I think that's been reached is that, or at least for the most part, is that having a debate of some kind here would probably slightly hurt Biden's chances of winning. Like maybe like save a chance for 71%, it might make it 70% or something. I'm wondering if just for the overall good of the party, though, that may be a worthwhile sacrifice. In particular, I think the couple of reasons is, one thing is that maybe it's just because I'm not as politically in tune as everybody. I don't really know any big name Democrats or anything. People keep saying the name Gavin Newsom. I guess he might be reasonably new or anything. I remember looking at the recent primer that happened. I didn't really know the names of too many people, and none of them, like Amy Klobuchar and all that, like they seem nice enough, but I didn't see them as particularly like, presidential for like say 2028. And I'm wondering if there's some merit of just having someone there. They don't have to be anyone crazy, and it doesn't. And they don't have to be like a particularly aggressive candidate. They can go there. They can at least get their name out there, so people know. Okay, there are more Democrats. Because honestly, if it wasn't for Joe Biden, I was pretty concerned about the 2020 election that there's not going to be any kind of big name who can compete against the Republicans.
Okay.
And for the sake of getting a big name out there, and then also I think if it's possible. There's a lot of talk about whether or not the Republicans are gonna have an absolute bloodbath between them, and they're really going to be aggressive. They're really going to fight. Versus, let's say the Democrats, they have two
Okay.
candidates, but at the end of it,
Sure,
think
sure,
they
sure.
completely shake hands.
I
They
want
really like each
people
other.
to answer your question, which was basically like the heart of it, as I understood it, right? Was that, is this a worthwhile sacrifice to make in the short term in order for long term to have better a better candidate in 2028 and 2032, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh.
So, you go first.
Well,
Fairy Queen.
Fairy Queen, go ahead, and then Prime.
Well, to be very, very clear, I think the way you phrased it was it would be good, better for the party as a whole. So you're not just referring to presidential elections, right? You're not just talking about buying us 8 more years instead of 4, right? You're talking about the influence of the party in the House, the influence of the party in the Senate, right? Its broad popular appeal to the centrists. Is that correct? Or are you only talking about presidential elections?
A bit of both. I think getting someone whose name can actually get on the national stage before 2026 or 2027, whenever the next presidential election would be, that would be one thing. And then also, I think if we could have like another person who's like a strong candidate and they can kind of fight in a friendly way with Joe Biden, like they're friendly, like, oh, I really love Joe Biden, but I just think I'd be better, that kind of thing. I think that would be a really good look for the party in contrast to the Republicans, if that's possible.
Like a
Stage
political
a
pillow
fake,
fight.
That's
No.
fake debate.
Yeah,
I
fake
think
debate.
I think I would politely just, if we're talking specifically about a challenger debating an incumbent in a primary election hosted by the DNC, if that's specifically what you mean by that, I would have to say no. And again, the reason I say no is based off of like what I read about like the Jimmy Carter challenger between like it wasn't, and a debate did not happen, but like the struggle between him and Ted Kennedy in 1980. So the consequence of that, so as Wick has already mentioned, Jimmy Carter was already well on his way to losing the presidency. It wasn't likely that he was going to survive based off of the polling data, based off of like the many blunders that he had during his presidency. But the Democrat Party, up until that point, had a decades-long hold of power, stemming back to FDR. After Jimmy Carter lost the presidency in 1980 to Ronald Reagan, it wasn't merely the fact that he lost the presidency. He was bashed so hard in that primary struggle between him and Ted Kennedy that not only did he lose the presidency, but many states which had historically were Southern, which had historically voted blue, they switched over and they voted red, right? It's actually, I think, I'm not sure, but I think that was one of Ward's argument on why that transfer happened. It happened in 1980 because of that struggle between those two candidates. And so my concern would be that if we were to allow that the blowback would not merely it would not merely bleed over into who will be president or who will not be president, right? It'll show a division between the party. It will show that there is, and I hate to phrase it like this, but that there's a woke faction and then there's an old school liberal conservative faction, right? And that the party is eating itself alive. And that's not going to sell well to independents, right? It's not going to sell well to them in the midterms. It's not going to sell well to them when they're trying to vote for who's going to be their senator or who's going to be their representative, as well as who they're going to vote for to be their president, right? So I don't think that, based off of that historical example, and again, if somebody else can think of an alternative one, then that's fine. But based off of that example, I don't think that's likely to happen. I think that it's probably vastly more likely that there would be repercussions that would extend beyond the presidency.
Prime, you had something to say?
I had lots of things to say. I don't think independents actually are a real thing. And even if they were a real thing, then they would appreciate heterodox ideology more than anyone else. So I'll just put that out there. I think sorry, I don't know the name of the person who asked the question. What's the name?
Saranet?
Saranet or Serenity, either one works.
Oh, okay. Well, Saranet, thanks so much for the question. I was with you until you like talked about like the fake debates. I don't like
I didn't mean
Again, a political pillow
meant, like,
fight.
wholesome debates.
no, fuck that wholesome shit. Like that's not a thing, and it should never be a thing. When you are having a debate, a fight, you should draw sharp contrasts. And this idea of being buddy, like what I said before during the panel, is that I like Bernie Sanders, but I think he showed that he was a weak politician because he couldn't do that. Because he did what basically you said, right? Well, like Joe Biden's my friend, and I don't really hate this guy, but maybe I'm slightly different from him in these ways, and I don't want to really call him out, even though Biden called him out, right? Even though Biden didn't have a problem making those divisions. No, I want none of that. But I do like the overall idea we were talking about, and I wish I had thought of it myself. That the debates create a stage for the next generation, right? Whether the incumbent, even if the incumbent wins, they help fill out the bench, because right now the Democrats have an extremely weak bench. There's lots of reasons for that. There's lots of reasons
in terms
for
of
that.
name recognition, I think.
Wait, IRI disagrees. I'm curious why. Why do you
Well,
think
I'll let him
there's
finish.
okay,
I'll
fair.
let him
But
finish.
I'm curious who you think the strong contenders other than Biden are.
That's fine.
So I think there's many reasons for that. I think a lot of it's Nancy Pelosi. I think and how the DNC has operated so far. Like this idea, this thing that Fairy Queen and IRI and Stephen were spouting, right? This idea of don't challenge incumbents. Well, the DNC is all on top of that. They're on top of that for other races too, like the House and Senate. They threaten people who are challengers and people who help the challengers. We know they do this. Right? They were actually quite upfront about this. I'm not for that, and I think that because they do that, because we don't encourage this infighting and give other people a chance, superstars, rather than just protect fossilized incumbents, then right now we have mostly nothing but geriatrics to offer.
Well, I have a question
Well,
for that on the point of geriatrics. So I just wanted to bring this up. I didn't get a chance in our main debate, but I'm thinking about the challengers that currently exist. So Donald Trump, I think, is he 76 or 74?
76.
Yeah,
76.
he's 76 years old.
His birthday is soon, next week.
Robert F. Kennedy is 69, which means hypothetically, if they did allow,
Nice.
if he were to win, he would leave that office at the age of 73 or 74. And as the representative person here, who statistically speaking, by being female, is most likely to outlive all of you, I would just ask the question. It doesn't seem to me, with maybe the exception of Marianne Williamson and Ron DeSantis and some of the other, it seems like many of these candidates that are challengers to Biden's incumbency, at least two of them are already septuagenarians, right? So it isn't necessarily the case that you're going to get a young and spry and new, fresh candidate anyway, even if you were to invite this, right? And the second thing that I would ask all of you, I would just like to ask all of you, do you believe in term limits for the Supreme Court? I know that we've talked a little bit about the senility, whether or not he's getting old. I just looked up, Googled the oldest Supreme Court justice. He was 90 years old. There are Supreme Court justices right now who are in their mid-70s and they're still making decisions. Do you think that there should be term limits so that Supreme Court justices don't stay on for as old as they stay? Should it not be a position for life?
Yeah, I think
validate the decisions that they've already made.
Either a term limit or an age limit. You got to go at some point.
So you think it's Supreme Court?
But mine have nothing to do with age. It's more just to get the progressive conservative supermajority out of there. That would be my reason. But
yeah. What was the first thing you asked?
Really bad idea. Okay, no, term limits for Supreme Court justices is a really, really bad idea. Okay, for a lot of reasons. Okay, one of those
can't wait to hear what they are, baby.
One of those reasons is the reason that is in a lifetime appointment is to prevent corruption. Okay, from them getting sweet cush deals afterwards.
Hey, somebody
seems to be working.
Yeah, seems to be working real well. Have you read anything about?
It's not a perfect system doesn't mean that by opening up, oh shoot.
It's just a slight scuff mark on the institution.
Let's just pour more gasoline.
Oh my God! I swear.
That's the stupidest take I have heard tonight.
Just because the reason I'm giving is not fulfilled doesn't mean I can't give this reason, right? Just because there is corruption doesn't mean I can't say it's to prevent corruption, right?
Anyway,
we have limits on state Supreme Courts. We're like the only country in the Western world that has a lifetime appointment. So we're kind of unique in that regard. So it's not necessary, and I don't think our Supreme Court is doing an amazing job. But I think everybody supports term limits. There's polls that show 70% of people. I know I question polls. Yeah, most people support 18 years because 18 years is enough to not be detached from the culture and too old, but also it's long enough to not be corrupt and have to worry about re-election or whatever.
2/3 of Americans
fundamentally disagree. Even if 80% of people supported a really bad idea, I would still say it's a really bad idea, right?
That's just you being an institutional shill, baby. Sometimes we got to think about these things. It's okay to change. It's okay to change
about these things, right? And so, first of all, you have two problems with this. If you decide, okay, we have term limits now, okay, what's to stop a Republican presidency who, say we get 50 years down the line, we have a Democratic bench elected to Supreme Court justices.
It might be 50 years.
The term limit's 20 years. And they're sitting there well, we changed it once before, and we could change it again. Why stop at 20? Why not go to 10? Get these guys out next term. Boom.
Wick,
Boom, bada
Well,
boom.
Wick,
You're not
if
gonna
the
get to
argument
keep
is
this?
if the argument is the Republican Party will bad faith it, then we can't
That's
do
not
anything. We just can't do
true,
anything.
right? I think that okay, that's not
Well,
true
I
at all.
To my audience that's left, hey guys, thanks for being here. Yeah, I didn't get any questions from you guys, so I'm assuming you guys don't have any. But come through later on. We're gonna do more YouTube streams and stuff. So hit that subscribe button in case you haven't done so yet. We'd love to have you. And after this, you should go over to Wick's channel, Wick TV on YouTube.com, and check him out. But thanks to everyone for being here. Hit the like button if you could, or not, whatever. It's cool. But I'm gonna head out. So yeah, have a good one.